Jigs and Bigs is proud to announce we're being supported by Old Glory Outdoors. They're a veteran-owned company that carries fishing and hunting gear. Plus, they're highly active in supporting veteran organizations and charities. Old Glory is an authorized dealer of favorite rods, FX rods, Guggen baits, X-Zone lures, Sixth Sense, and many more. There's a brick-and-mortar store located in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, but you can also order online at oldgloryoutdoors.com. They ship anywhere in the lower 48 states or order online and pick up at the store. When you order, use the promo code JIGS and BIGS and you'll save 10% off your complete order. Plus, you'll help support the show. Make sure to check out the apparel line called OGO Gear while you're there. Old Glory Outdoors believes in the slogan "Start 'em young" to keep kids away from screens and enjoying nature. They've got a full array of live bait too. Check out oldgloryoutdoors.com and use the promo code JIGS and BIGS. Save some money and gear up now. All right, guys, here we are, Jigs and Bigs. It's a Tuesday. It's Bobby Roastbeef here, introing the show. Now, we've got a good one for you. Today, we went all over the place with this show. First off, it's our second time around. We got our jig heads in on the unlisted YouTube feed, so they're commenting on some things. We can get some info from them. Talk about a lot, man. We've had a crazy week. We talk about a visit to Old Glory Outdoors, where we were stocked up on all kinds of good stuff, and kind of we're getting ready for spring over here. We discuss one major topic we get into is we talk about fishing and infringing on private property and how we've dealt with it, how you've dealt with it, things like that. This is a conversation that's going to go on much further than that, but we got into it. We also get a full update on all of the Chronic Trips information for the current February monthly tournament that's going on with Chronic Trips. Great stuff going on, all kinds of good stuff to talk about. Valentine's Day was just the other day. I hope you guys had yourself a nice, enjoyable Valentine's Day. I know I sure as hell did. Anyway, guys, we have a great show coming up. Stick around for it. Stay tuned. There is so much good stuff packed into this one episode. I'll tell you what, for the middle of February, we've kind of nailed it as far as content. We've got a lot happening. Let's go ahead and dive right into this, guys. Go ahead, grab yourself a beverage, get comfortable, get ready, because we're going to start with this episode right after this. Everybody, Bobby Roastbeef here on a Tuesday morning for you, and it is Jigs and Bigs. And, I was just going over the itinerary of things to talk about this week with Shawn the Fisherman, and we have an abundance of things to talk about, considering that it's mid-February right now. Like, it's middle of winter, and as we speak, Shawn, are you aware that pockets of Texas right now are struggling with power outages everywhere because of subarctic temperatures? This is real.
I was not aware. I knew that storm was moving up the country from the southwest to us, but I didn't realize how bad it was.
This is real. I had what Weston Smith on his channel had on his story had a couple of points that had popped up where he had put screenshots of the weather, and it was like 8 degrees in Texas. So I had been kind of laughing this off and being like, you guys, that's adorable. In fact, one of our regular listeners, Albert, you remember Albert, he's in, yep. I think he's in like the San Antonio area or something, or he relocated, and he had sent the comment over, and I kind of feel bad because I totally wrote it off. He was basically complaining about the cold, the temperatures that they're dealing with, and I get it. When you're not used to it, you're just not used to it. It is what it is. But where is it? I can't find it in the inbox right now.
You look for that. I actually did have an interaction with Albert because he sent me a message too.
Oh, okay.
And basically I said, well, how cold is it? He told me. I said, well, look, just for perspective, I said, as long as it's not windy or snowing, I'm usually that guy that's outside in shorts and 20 degrees. 20 degrees, 25 degrees is about my limit. When it gets colder than that, or if there's wind or snow, then I'll wear, like today, actually, I got a physical therapy appointment when we're done here. I'm walking out the house in shorts because what's the point?
Well, and you know, it's very interesting that you bring that point up because there's even Elise at one point had made a post about shorts guy. And I think every New England guy at one point or another has been that shorts guy. But basically Albert was, he had sent me a screenshot of the 5 or 7 day forecast, looking at it, and it looked like it was going to get down to about like maybe high 20s. And I was like, I sent him a screenshot of what I was dealing with, which was in the 20s. And I said, actually, that's kind of warm for up here. I'm like, I'm not hating that right now, you know, but I feel bad. We're kind of writing it off, and you know, I get it. They don't have the infrastructure down there to handle. You know, they're never salting the roads. You know what I mean? If it freezes over, that's never going to happen. So it's like, that's
a lot of the highways down there aren't asphalt; they're cement.
True,
and that's just even way worse for ice. It's just you're screwed. You can't even see it.
Even more relative to the show, how bad does this mess up their fish? You know what I mean? When it gets that cold, I mean, they're not used to
probably inactive anyways. I would imagine they're just sitting at the bottom.
I'm curious about what the bounce back time period is like. How long does it take for them to kind of get adjusted and acclimated back to it? Because those are temperatures they're not necessarily used to at all. You know, probably generations of fish have been like, "What the hell is going on in this water?" Anyway, way off a tangent right from the get go. Let's go. Oh, let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, and Andy jumps in and says, listening while working, try not to get me electrocuted. I'll do the best that I can. I shut off my heater this time.
So he's asking us not to tell jokes, apparently. Is that what we do now? We're just going to, maybe you should go back to that stale intro you did as a joke before we went on air with the, this is Robert.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Robert Roastbeef. Welcome to NPR's Jigs and Bigs.
NPR. Today we'll be talking about jigs and origami.
Jigs or potentially bigs.
Yes. Two quick things on the weather before we drop that topic. Shawn the fisherman story. First time I went to Oklahoma, massive ice storm moved through. Immediately, the instructors we had for school were on the phone with us like, hey, look, you're not coming in tomorrow. There's no way. Don't worry about it. Day off. Because the roads are that dead and they can't deal with it. Same time that night, I think there was 1 or 2, because there was another one while I was down there. I think they were the same time. 2 40-car pileups on a couple major highways, because in Oklahoma, I noticed, like, you know, we have a bad reputation for being bad drivers up here in the Northeast. Nobody tailgates like Oklahoma people. I am not kidding, dude. They are like 4 feet from your car at all times, and I was like freaked out in the slow lane. Like, what the hell is everybody doing here? No, they tailgate. Yep. So you put a little ice in there, and that's just bound to happen. I hate to say that. Yeah. But I don't think anybody got seriously injured with that pile up, thank God. But that was one thing. And the other thing is, like, we talk about the weather up here being bad, but we are coastal and we still stay a little bit warmer than some of the other nastier parts in like the Midwest, the upper Midwest. So I have a family text thread going with my wife's family in Wisconsin and Minnesota. And their text last night, somebody took a picture of their weather, and it was negative 18 with the wind chill down to negative 38. So
that's bananas, man. I'm telling you,
I would not be wearing shorts in that.
Hoth.
Yeah, Hoth. So they got tauntauns and wampas out there. They don't give a shit.
Smells terrible, but it'll keep you warm. Hey, we've got a listener all the way in North Kakalaki. We got Jordan. Yeah. How you doing, JC Swag? This is great. This is going to be a lot of fun. So we've got a lot to talk about. Like we've had surprisingly for the middle of winter, we've had a crazy week. And yes, some of that even includes Valentine's Day. What do you say Shawn, you've got kind of like the bigger chunk of the list, but I think we've got the makings for an amazing conversation about legal issues and rights. And things like that we're going to be bringing up. We'll bring that up later. But Shawn, what do you go? Let's check something off of your list and whittle that one down a little bit.
In the theme of Valentine's Day.
Yes.
All right. What I found is apparently I have been separated from my soulmate for my entire life.
Yep.
So I told you, and you had a good laugh. I have a go, back and forth messaging thing with Chris Tabari, who Chris is a listener of the show, and we talked about Chris a little bit in the past. He has a history. He played music professionally. He got to tour with a bunch of metal bands. So Chris and I have kind of hit it off. We shoot each other shit, right? So we were talking the other day, and the conversation took a kind of a weird turn. And the next thing you know, he and I are shooting pictures of each other's, for lack of better words, nerd rooms.
Yes.
Not a man cave.
Not
man cave is a place that I imagine that unspeakable acts occur, and we can't talk about such things. So I want to plant that seed in everybody's mind. The next time you hear man cave, it's a bad place. Nerd room, it's a little more tame. So we were going back and forth and just laughing because one of the things that we both have in similarity, and I think a lot of metalheads have this too, whether it's a love of science fiction or horror or whatever, and there's different ways you can manifest that love. So, yeah, I have a collection. You can't see it very well in the background for anybody who's watching, but I have a couple shelves behind me with, I like the Transformers. I'm a Transformers nerd. We grew up in the 80s. That was straight up brainwashing by Hasbro. Thank you, Hasbro. It's still stuck. So I kind of dabble around in that. I like the new figures. That's cool. Chris has a whole thing of sci-fi and horror figures he was showing me. So, yeah, it's obviously true love. It's just a shame we're both married. I don't know what else to say. On that note, he is going to catch a concert with us at some point whenever concerts come back. Now, speaking about Valentine's Day again, my understanding is you had some excitement for Valentine's Day.
I did have a little bit of excitement for Valentine's Day. Not that exciting. I think I'm probably overplaying it, but I did. I am one of those people, and I just recently found out that someone close to the show feels my pain as well. Every February, I get smacked with, and this is coming, right out of the heels of like Christmas. We start to bounce back a little bit in January and get things back together. But Valentine's Day happens, and Bobby Roastbeef he's the velvet teddy bear. He is. He's a romantic guy. I like to treat Mrs. Roastbeef periodically to something special. But the issue I have is that Valentine's Day will happen, and then 7 days later, Mrs. Roastbeef's birthday happens. Which means that there's 2 instances now that I have to shop for. And this isn't an issue. I'm not complaining about spending money on my lovely lady. I'm complaining about the lack of ideas. Come on, you know what I mean? Now, I got to get super creative now. And what I decided to do this year for Valentine's Day was just get her something really simple and kind of enjoyable that she can hang up. But I wanted to support, like I'm a big fan of supporting, small businesses. I just am. And something caught my eye, and it was over my shoulder right now, that bottle opener back there, which came to me courtesy of Drop Shot Girl on Instagram. So I had happened to see on her story that she had a few crafts that were ideal for Valentine's Day that she was putting together, and one of them caught my eye right away, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I chose a Valentine's Day gift that was kind of fishing related for Mrs. Roastbeef? And this is what I picked up for her. Just a little bit of wall art here. You've got me hook, line, and sinker, does the job. She thinks it's adorable. So she's looking for a spot to hang it up now, but I figured I would show it off. And if you guys want to check out some of Drop Shot Girl's stuff, go and check out her Instagram. She posts a lot of it right there, and she's fantastic, does great stuff. So thank you so much, Sin, for everything. Great stuff. I love it.
Very nice. We should make note now that is a huge risk you took.
Yes.
That is anything to do with fishing and wives and Valentine's Day. Man, that is rolling the dice.
It is. And I knew it. I was like, okay, so it's not like there aren't fishing poles or people out fishing or there's no lures on there. In fact, the fish that are on there on display are really, really, really small. Like, it's very slight. So that's why once I saw that design, I figured this would get the pass, and it did. I was surprised. I'm like, that is fantastic. But she often likes to buy like fishing related things to like decorate the house. For Christmas, we have a nutcracker that is a fisherman. We have a number of different ornaments that are largemouth. And she does all that stuff for me. I was like, oh, well, just this will be kind of cute. Kind of puts it out there and see what happens. So yeah, that was Valentine's Day, and how all that stuff worked out. Good stuff.
Home run on my side of the fence. My wife and I, and there's going to be a lot of guys that are very jealous of this.
I hear you.
My wife and I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. My wife loves to travel, so we do. That's where our resources go. So we'll go out to dinner every now and again. Again, with my allergies and food problems,
limited,
I gotta worry about different things. So we kind of limit that, but. No, she decided she was going to go skiing locally with the boys today, and I can't ski because my knees, and I wouldn't anyways because I don't like going down hillsides very fast. It's not my speed, you know. So they're out having a good time. I'm here with you recording, about to go for some physical therapy, and yeah, it's good times in my life.
It is good times.
Yeah, that's a good call with that gift. I mean, anytime you can support a local artist.
Yeah.
I've seen Drop Shot Girls stuff online. It's great.
Oh yeah.
And for anybody who's listening. What is her exact Instagram handle? Because it's like the girl is misspelled. It's like G-U-R-L.
G-U-R-L.
Yeah.
So it's it's just the word drop shot girl, G-U-R-L.
Okay.
I don't think there's any spaces or anything. But yeah, I mean, she does great stuff. I love this bottle opener. I think it's adorable. Like, you know, she's really good at what she does. And the thing that I really like, anytime you buy something that's, you know, handcrafted, you got to worry about the shipping and things like that. And she said when I had ordered this, she goes, I'm going to ship it as soon as it's 100% dry. I don't want to rush it and have it end up like getting smudged in shipping or when I'm trying to package it. So, you know, she's very, you know, forward thinking as far as like making sure that it shows up where it should in the right kind of condition. So very cool. What else do we want to jump into?
Awesome. Well, you know what? Just to kind of cap that off, of course, I didn't look completely at my notes. I looked up and we started talking, and I forgot about my notes for a second. But with the Chris Tabari stuff, that led to a conversation that you and I had, and I said, "There's actually a bit of interesting pre-Shawn the Fisherman, Shawn on the on YouTube, doing an interview, which you watched, and you said it was fascinating because it was just so." I got pretty deep with some nerd stuff, and it was actually kind of it was an adventure for me to learn about an item that I came across that was one of a kind, and I sold it to one of the top collectors in the U.S. On behalf of a friend. I actually did it for one Pepsi was my cost because a buddy of mine said, I don't go on eBay. Would you do this for me? And I had to start from the bottom of what do I have here and what can I do with it? What can it sell for? How do I get verification? Because in this day and age, everybody that collects wants some sort of a certificate saying, this is the real deal. This has been signed by somebody. This has been witnessed by a third party. And this item that I got a hold of was from the 1980s, and they didn't do shit like that.
No.
And it's a one-of-a-kind piece, and I ended up selling it to a collector. He completely refurbished it. I amazingly got a bit of the backstory from someone who was probably involved in its creation, which was completely nuts, 40 years later. And I'm going to work with that creator and just make sure it's okay for us to post that link. I'm sure he's not going to have a problem with it, that's coming up soon. So as soon as I get the permission to do that, I'll make sure everybody takes a look at it. But the actual item was a, like if you go to any store, a toy store or whatever, you have a, like at the end of every aisle, there's an end cap display. Like, every supermarket has an end cap display. All right. The grocery managers are responsible for doing that. Well, the store managers are responsible for the end cap displays at toy stores, which are there even any toy stores left? There are none. But Walmart has end cap displays sometimes.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine had come into a piece that was a giant He-Man Masters of the Universe end cap display made out of like thick plywood. It had a whole bunch of artistic stuff done to it. It had all the figures from that line. So it was from 1984. Obviously, over the years, it had been damaged, played with, this, that, and the other thing. A couple pieces were missing, but he wanted to sell it, and I had to dig up where it was, how I could get it verified, this, that, and the other thing, and that's all covered in that video. So we'll post that as soon as I get the thumbs up from that gentleman.
Nice.
So,
sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that's that. You and I had an adventure.
We did have an adventure. We did. We went to, we visited pretty much like the bass fisherman's favorite place on earth. Old Glory Outdoors. Of course. That's what you do. We were both there for totally different reasons. Stocking up on different stuff. You picked up an ice auger and some shiners, and I forget what else you'd pick. How'd the auger work out for you?
Oh, it's perfect. It went through like butter. Beautiful.
Yeah. We picked up a bunch of different things. I had gone and picked up some new baits. I realized going through, I've been organizing my waterproof boxes as I get ready for the kayak session that's, someday getting here. I realized something that I had no red at all. I had nothing. And I took a picture of these and put them on Instagram. And my goal for this year, as you guys know, is to basically improve my game with search baits. And the bait that I chose to start with is a very versatile lipless crank. And I figured what I would do is I would just go for it. So I picked up a few. I picked up a Guggen clutch in what is this color? I think it's Cash Craw is this one here. Nice looking color. They have this reflective background. It just is crazy. But nice red. I did notice that the hooks are very similar on the 6 cent stuff. I've got this 6 cents Quake 70 here, which I guess I hear that there is also a Quake 80 that is a suspending lipless, which I had never looked into. This one's called Sour Patch here. Cool color.
That's a beautiful looking craw color.
Yeah, it really is. And I think I've got, there was another Quake 70 I just couldn't pass up. A little bit different tone as far as the red goes. This one here is called Cash Craw. Get it out of the glare. Yeah, there we go. You can see it's a little bit more of a maroon. Really, really good dark color too, with the black highlighting. And then I had to go for it. I needed a red chatterbait as well, and I have yet to throw the Guggen Squad clickbait. But after looking at this thing, this is really intriguing. This whole mechanism up here for the blade with the BBs, and it's really intriguing to see how this is going to work. Because there seems to be tension on that blade. I wonder if it's going to be as much of a high performer when it comes to, you first start cranking that reel and you can feel it just shaking right there, because it seems like it'll basically be in the right position to catch whatever water is right there. So I'm excited to throw that. I haven't played around with any kind of like trailers or colors or anything like that, but I'll get there at one point or another. We'll make it happen. A couple other things that happened this week and I just want to mention this because we talked about it that day on the ride, was voting on the polls for our upcoming tournament. We're planning on doing a nationwide tournament in May. We had a lot of questions to kind of throw out there, and one of the things we had done was this week was, do we want to make it freshwater exclusively, or do we want to open it up to saltwater as well? And while we did have some votes for saltwater, it was significantly freshwater only. So that's the way we're going to roll with it. We've got that. And then for prizes, the interest was more in, as far as like winnings, was instead of it just being cash based, the idea was to do prize packs and try and do as many of them as possible. So if you place, you develop, you pick up like a prize pack or a mystery box or something like that. It's loaded full of great stuff. So this is going to be really interesting for us, and it'll be a whole lot of fun. I'm really excited to see how it all kind of plays out. There was one other element to this too.
I'll make sure that when I'm doing the freshwater species list, that it's not just going to be Northeast species. I'll include a lot of Southwest stuff, and because if we're removing tuna, I'll put in alligator gar. I don't care.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
All right, so we talked about this in the car ride too, and I'm going to cover this briefly. Yep. So anybody who's listening that's in another state or whatever and thinks that you can't compete or whatever, or this, Bobby and I decided we're going to break it down and explain how I came up with the point system. Yeah, the point system. So originally when the first Chronic Trips tournament came out, it was a great idea. I love fishing, but I loved fishing the tournament, and I made note of that to Seth running Chronic Trips. I'm like, it doesn't make a lot of sense that a 100-inch tuna or a 60, you know what I mean? So one person catch one tuna and then sit back and wait for everybody in the field to catch a trophy of every species, and they might not touch that tuna.
Exactly.
So we came up with a point system. The way the point system works is I keep tabs on it throughout the tournament to see who's in the lead. All right.
Yep.
But at the end of the tournament, for every species of fish that is enlisted, so largemouth, smallmouth, we have a trout category, but I might broaden that thing to each individual trout species. We can do all sorts of stuff,
sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where the feedback surveys come in.
Yep.
But every species at the end of the tournament, whoever caught the biggest in that species, it's worth 4 points. The point where we go off a point system. The second biggest is worth 3 points. Mm-hmm. The third biggest is worth 2 points. If you turn one in to everybody else, worth 1 point per fish.
Yep.
Now, where the strategy comes in is if you're in Texas and you catch a 23-inch largemouth, you only get to submit that once in one category. So if you've got a 22.5-inch largemouth, but you also have the NE5 category where you're lacking, do you want to now sacrifice a 22.5-inch largemouth, because that thing's gone now, you can't move it over, and replace it with a 23, and then you're worried about something else for the NE5 category? That's what I loved about this strategy. Yeah. You only submit that fish once. It can only go into one place. one time. It can't be in two categories at once because we actually had some questions about that in excuse me, October or August, I believe. So yeah, it's a little bit of strategy. You're going for length, you're going for those fish, you're going for the biggest fish of the week. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there, and we're going to adopt a lot of that from Chronic Trips and use that. Sounds like for fresh water, and we'll definitely come through with the prize packs. I know that. So.
Oh yeah, these are going to be really good prize packs because what we're going to do is essentially we're going to take the entry fees to go in, and we're going to be using our Jigs and Bigs discount to acquire as many amazing prizes as we can for people who are lined up here. And the idea is, I think we want to do winnings for as many people as possible. And I'm officially going to say this, that the May tournament, the month-long tournament, I'm coming out of retirement for.
Holy shit!
I'm going to compete in this. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that I'd ask the question: should we just plan it out for a weekend, or should we go for a month-long tournament of CPR? And it was a month long. Is what won by a lot. Actually, it was the same sort of spread that we had on the freshwater saltwater debate. It won by a lot. So we're gonna go for the month long and give it a go. And multi-species is a whole lot of fun. I think and by May, pretty much everybody's going to be fairly active. I also think that, it's a good time of year I think actually it's a really good time of year to be pitting northern anglers up against some of the southern anglers there because of the timeline differences between the latitude,
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Yep. And speaking of interesting, so I did not do a Chronic Trips update last week based on, there was just there was fish still coming in, and I said, well, we'll just wait till next week. So last week I updated the standings today. Last week in the competitor division, let me find my records here. All right, here we go. All right, I had it up and I was on the wrong Excel sheet, but I got it. So last week there's four people in the competitor division. Nelson, who's part of our crew, shall we say?
Yep.
John Connon is first time fishing with us in these tournaments. Nate Shagnon, a mainstay, and is it Todd Tremblay? Todd Tremblay. All right. So as of last week, behind him at various distances. As of this week, Nelson took the lead yesterday. I was actually out ice fishing with him, which I'll get into in a minute. Nelson took the lead. He caught the largest bass of the tournament. Not a huge one, only 15 plus, but it's enough for the lead. And then John's in second with 17 points. Nate's in third, tied with Todd at 10 points each. And then over in the Nature Nut sponsor division, Mark, because he's been out ice fishing quite a bit, has 16 points. He's in the lead. I'm at 6. I just put some fish on the board yesterday, and I actually have a few days this week to try and get out in the morning. So nice. I have a chance to try to catch up to him, but it's just Mark. He punches trout. What can I do? I can't do anything. The trout can't do anything. Nobody can do anything.
It's true.
Brock also said he might be getting out too. So, yeah, we're halfway through the tournament, and it's rocking and rolling. The competitors division is it's tight. So we'll see where it goes. Couple notes. The longest fish of the first week, Nate put in an 18-inch chain pickerel. Mark had a 17.25-inch largemouth for our division. And then for this past week, John put in a 20.5-inch pickerel. Very nice. Yeah. Mark put in an 18.5-inch pickerel. So fish are starting to heat up. The pickerel are biting. And I'm sure that if you can find a lake with pike in them, the pike are biting too.
Yep.
So there's my Chronic Trips update. We're halfway through. You can still jump in. It's not like anybody has a super dominant lead. You ice fish a lot, or if you're fishing a lot in the South, jump in and see what happens. You never know.
Really, where those numbers are, if you go out and have one really good day, you could easily be in the winnings. We got a couple of people jumping in here. We got Cody joining us, says what's cracking, and then R&R Outdoors. Rodney says that he likes month-long tournaments because of his work schedule. He works in the fields during prime fishing season, so it gives him a chance to still compete. I agree with that. I initially thought like, so a weekend wouldn't be the worst thing, but it's nice and short. We go and get it done. People have plenty of time to plan ahead and clear their calendar if they want to make sure they've got something. But generally, most people are going to have a weekend day available to at least get out there and compete. And then when I saw the feedback coming back for the monthly, it just made sense. This way, if what if we chose a weekend where somebody had like a wedding or something? It's like, come on, that's I know that you can't truly please everybody. It's impossible, but it's we got to at least give it a shot to make it accessible for everybody. And I think that that monthlies are definitely a lot of fun. It's takes its toll mentally. It can, because it is. And to quote you, Shawn, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It is. But I think this is just going to be a whole lot of fun. Doing multi-species is a blast. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a great May. I know it is. I'm very, very excited. You've also got some more big news as far as related to our sponsors as well. In fact, one that you're wearing their hat.
I am wearing my Three Bells hat. Yes, I am. I'm not wearing my Three Bells sweatshirt today. Alternate. It's like if you go to a concert, you don't want to wear the shirt of the band you're at, and you definitely don't want to wear the shirt and a hat of the band. So I always mix it up. So if I'm wearing one sponsor's hat, I'm not wearing the
I do not follow that advice.
Terrors. Yeah, my Appleton West Terrors sweatshirt out there in Wisconsin. I'm repping Wisconsin again. So
nice.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So my kayak is ready for pickup down at Three Bells.
That's awesome.
So I'll be heading down there. Now, the funny thing was, there was a day I had picked out to pick it up. I'm not going to say what day because I like being quiet about stuff.
Yep.
But there was the day that I had picked out. I had said, great. I said, Bobby, I called my friend and soon to be yours, the Dude Bud.
Yep.
And I said, let's get the Dude Bud down there because he might be interested in buying a kayak too. He wants to check the place out, etc. Right? So I threw a date at you and you said, absolutely not. I cannot. Because you were celebrating your wife's birthday that day. And I swear to God, I think 5 minutes afterwards, the Dude Bud sent me a text saying, I can't, that's my wife's birthday.
Yep.
So the stars aligned. You and the Dude Bud picked the perfect day apparently to get married. You guys think alike. There's something to be said about that.
I feel
so that was,
like we're kindred spirits. Like we can understand each other. I feel like, I feel Dude Bud adjacent, if I'm being honest here.
My stake in this was the joy.
Yeah.
After picking up the kayak of seeing you two lock eyes across the table from each other at Bar Taco with a duck quesadilla in each hand and then wrap it around and feed to each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be hard to top Dabari's Jaws toast with his buddy because that was phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely right.
That's a high bar. But if we're looking for crazy ways to eat duck quesadillas, that just seems organic for you two.
No, it definitely does. It seems perfect.
So I'll be heading down because there's a couple other people that wanted to check the place out and see what they have to offer and possibly look into future kayak investments. Mm-hmm. Nelson and cousin John from the Fishing Report will be coming down with me, and we will be eating duck quesadillas. So there.
That's awesome.
Sorry, man. I know you're gonna have a great time with your wife celebrating the birthday, but I'm eating duck quesadillas. So there.
Yeah. What are we doing that night? What are we doing that day? She's going to get this woman. This pandemic.
You don't want to start a conversation by saying this woman.
That's 4 tattoos this year.
Well,
4. That's how she's been dealing with the pandemic. She's a nurse, so I get it, So she's been dealing with it by getting 4 tattoos this year. Impressive.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, so that's primarily her whole deal, and then I think we're doing a big birthday dinner with the kids. We're going to this place called Chima that we really like, and killer steakhouse. So I'm really looking forward to that. But Valentine's Day dinner was pretty impressive last night. We ordered takeout from the Fort.
Yeah,
not playing around. Very, very good stuff. The kids and we all ordered schnitzels. My wife ordered a filet. She's happy. A barrage of different, appetizers. It was really great. So I don't know why.
Excellent.
Again,
speaking of food, and I'm just going to tie up a whole bunch of loose ends we just started talking about.
Perfect.
But speaking of food, so yesterday was an ice fishing day. The day before was an ice fishing day too. Saturday was more experimental. Talk about that very briefly.
You had an experiment.
We had an experiment. There's a body of water that is rumored to have some bowfin in it. And I want to catch a bowfin in Massachusetts. So I went out there with my kids and a buddy of mine that I haven't fished with in a long time. He brought his daughter. We got Jerry's heading down there too.
Nice.
Right? Yep. So Jerry, maybe I'll send you a message and let you know when we're down there. If you want to join us for duck, we could work something out. But
choke down some quesadillas.
That's what we can do. So we went out Saturday to a small body of water with this rumored bowfin population, and I set up my tip-ups. My sons played a little hockey, screwing around. My buddy came out. His daughter played hockey with the boys, and we didn't catch shit. And then the wind picked up, and that's, again, like in the summer, in the spring, in the fall, I will weather any element except for lightning. In ice fishing, ice fishing is really where I turn off my thinking part of my head with fishing and I actually have fun, and I'm there to cook and socialize and just there's tip-ups out. 9 out of 10 times I let the kids get them, unless there's a tournament going on. So we just did that Saturday, no big deal. Sunday, cousin John stopped into the house. We went up to a lake in the Berkshires, and on the way we stopped at, this is food note part 1. We stopped at Granville General Store, which we've mentioned on the show a couple of times. Granville has that cheese. I did not buy any cheese there, but I will say this to any of our listeners. If you are going on the way, or if you're on your way up to the Berkshires and you need to stop for food, soda, whatever, I think they have worms. They used to. I don't think they definitely don't have shiners, but they have worms. And I think spikes, little wax worms, stuff like that.
All right.
So they might have some bait selection, but if you need, grab some food. If you're up there, grab a block of cheese. You got to try it. Their cheese, just ask for a little bit, even if it's just a nibble on the ice like a mouse, whatever. But we did leave more than a handful of Jigs and Big stickers up there. So if you're on your way and you don't have a Jigs and Big sticker, stop in there, ask them for them, and buy the cheese. I use that cheese for my crock pot macaroni and cheese.
Is that the extra sharp?
Yes, I think you had
so
it.
Good. Yeah, it didn't last long. Oh my God. So good.
It's good. So they sell or age it up there apparently, and it's phenomenal. But we stopped up there. We grabbed our snacks. I had stuff for quick pizzas, and we got up on the lake. Right now on the lake, Nelson was already there. We showed up a little late, but my friend and yours, Berkshire Brett, stopped in.
Brett.
He's up to Shears. He's everywhere. So he stopped in. He gave me a handful of My Four Sons stickers. So I have some My Four Sons tackle shop stickers, which is cool. Yeah, we got that. I gave him some Jigs and Big stickers. So those will be up at My Four Sons Tackle. If you're there and you're buying lures or buying minnows, go ahead. Look, Cody's asking for stickers too. Cody, where's Cody live at?
Cody's in Maryland.
Cody's in Maryland. Okay, so that's about an 8-hour drive up to Granville General Store. You'll be fine, Cody. We'll tell him to leave you one. So
I think we could probably ship Cody a sticker. Come
on. I already went up there. I used the gas to get up to Granville. He can drive too. He's fine.
Cody loves cheese and cocaine.
Yep, we got you, Cody. We'll send you one. DM us offline so that the all 6 people listening don't. I do that. Oh, the cocaine. You do that standing on your head, or the cheese?
It's the best way.
So yeah, we went to Granville General Store, got our wares, got up there to the lake. Berkshire Brett's up there, and let me tell you how heroic Berkshire Brett is. All right, now you want to talk hero? There's a level for heroic. You know how heroic shit is?
Yeah.
The end game. Captain America standing there with a broken shield, not giving up, and then the cavalry arrives. Right? I can say that it's been out for 3 years now.
Oh yeah, no spoilers there.
Okay, Berkshire Brett, he was the cavalry. Doctor Strange himself showed up with 4 fresh venison steaks for me.
Oh, dude.
I didn't tell you that. Bravo. Give the applause for Berkshire Brett. I'm pointing.
That's impressive.
Brett did some jigging. Nelson, John, and I had a bunch of tip-ups out. We didn't get anything big. Nelson got a couple of bass at 15, both, I think, on tip-ups. John jigged up a bluegill and a small bass, and I caught a couple of tip-ups. Here was the weird thing. And I made note of this because I don't think I've ever seen it. Not like I'm out on the ice every day, but there was 13 solid inches of ice there, which was awesome. What was not awesome was somehow above the ice, there was 13 inches of slush, snow in various states of melt, and water.
Yep.
So my service boots that we service, SERVUS brand boots that we talked about for the Christmas show, have slits in them. They have slits in them because I have worn those on flight lines. I have worn those on airfields. I have worn those to do my driveway. I have worn those for every ice fishing adventure for the past 12 years. They're old. They broke. And even on Saturday, it wasn't snowing or it wasn't raining. There was no water on the ice, and they still held up to the powdered snow that was on the ice. They didn't hold up to the water. My feet were
Soaked,
frozen
right?
solid. Yeah, so I have to buy a new pair of those this afternoon. I'm very upset, though. I love those boots. They did everything, went everywhere. They served their country, and yeah, they got to go.
I will say this. I have been looking around. I have found that Tractor Supply actually sells those Honeywell service boots. Not
Perfect.
the ones that have the insulating sock that you have in there, but they are waterproof, the steel toe, everything else. And what's nice is if you go right in the center aisle, you can get your wool socks. So you can layer up that way and be good to go. And I mean, if you can't get them on Amazon or they're not available in your size, check your local Tractor Supply. That's where I get my finals.
The silver lining to that is I'll probably be going with you to get those because the liner socks that I have are removable.
Oh yeah,
and that's so I might just yank those out and put them in the new pair, and we're good to go.
Smart shit right there. Very very smart.
I'm a smart raccoon. So yeah, that went around the bend there. But yeah, I'll be picking up the kayak in a week. We had a lot of ice fishing adventures this past week. I do have some internet stuff to throw on there. I'm getting a question right now from Cody, and I'll get into the internet stuff here. Have I ever had Venom? I have not.
I'd love to
will
try
apparently
that.
smack my mom.
I'd have to try that out. I love beef carpaccio. I love it. But venison, I wonder how that would be.
Well, if you know how to cook it, we'll try it, and then I'll have my mom on hand, I guess.
You don't cook it.
Oh,
yeah.
Raw?
Yeah.
Then no, I have not, and I hate to tell you, I probably won't. I keep it so simple, man. I throw a few seasonings on any of my red meat, and I like to taste the little simple stuff that'll bring the flavor out. Salt, pepper, sometimes some garlic salt if I'm feeling froggy, and that's it. I keep it very very simple.
The bomb here and there just to keep life spicy.
Absolutely not. No,
I can't not.
Yeah, so we had a couple of raw dog. Thanks, Cody. You're gross. Bareback. I don't eat my meat bareback. We have a couple of internet things that have floated around the web through various social media things, whatnot, outlets, media, whatever. That I just want to bring up real quick that I thought were interesting, and I know you have something afterwards to add to that.
Yep.
So first and foremost, you were on Paddle and Fin on their Bass Fishing with Noobs.
Yep, Bass Fishing with Noobs
podcast.
Yep. And that runs today is President's Day. That's the day that it drops. So you can check that out over there. I got to talk with Ryan and briefly with Shawn. Bass Fishing with Noobs is Shawn. Totally different Shawn. He was in and out, actually. He got called in to work, but was able to dial back into the StreamYard from the phone. It was pretty interesting. But very, very cool being on that show. Ryan is he's like, when he started that podcast, he was, and it's so funny. He was like, I can't believe you listened to that first episode. That was terrible. Blah, 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 blah. All this stuff. He was just so downplaying. And I'm like, dude, it was a great episode. It was exactly what I needed to light a fire under my ass to start actually getting serious about bass fishing. I was like, it was great. And I, quoted Gary Vee, and I told him, I was like, there's a saying that like your first podcast, your first album, your first song, your first painting, your first whatever, it's going to suck. But you're never going to get to that 50th if you don't take that step and go for it. So very, very cool. Rodney jumps in and says, venison is all that he fills his freezer with anymore. Nothing better. I don't know. I have to say, this is ambitious, and I'm not a big hunting guy per se, but I'm curious. What do you think tastes better, venison or elk?
Me? Oh man, I've only had elk. Believe it or not, the only time I've eaten elk is jerky.
Oh really?
So I can't really make the comparison.
Well, I got to make you some elk burgers. Oh my god, it's delicious.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it is delicious.
Yep. Nice. So we'll do that. Next up, you sent me a link yesterday regarding Hookset Hoodlum's new show on YouTube. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. It was great. It was impressive. So they have this concept of, it's like a 10-minute sort of interview show. That's the idea. And, they're still in the process of tightening things up, but they had, a communal friend of ours, Delirious Angler. He's one of the Hookset Hoodlums pro staffers. And He is a gold mine of content. So this is their show they've got on their YouTube channel, and the idea is that this is going to run weekly, and it'll just be they pop in and they talk fishing, they interview their guests, like rapid fire style questions. They just have a list and they keep going through them until they run out of that timer, and it's pretty freaking fantastic. Yeah, Rodney. New England isn't really known for our elk either.
Yeah.
I got to get it from an outside source, but yeah, comparatively, yeah, it's
Bobby's got an elk guy.
I got an elk guy. Yeah, his name's Arnold. But local listeners will know what the hell I'm talking about there. But we had, I got a chance to watch it, and Wild Bill had told me, he says, you get a ton of love in the beginning of this episode, like right out of the gates. It's pretty impressive. And they definitely had some fun with me, to say the least. It was good. I loved it. Like I said, Delirious is the wealth of content at any moment. I mean, he's got commentary and it's just it's so I'm excited to see what's down the road. Now I know that Brutus has been on the show. That's already recorded. I know that a lot of the other pro staffers like Rodney and Cody are going to be included for that as well. But Shawn the Fisherman is going to be making an appearance on this program, and I'm really excited to see where this goes.
I'm going to say it's going to go straight into the shitter. In a good way.
I think it'll be good. I think it'll be exciting.
Yeah, no. Once I heard that they were that Hookset was getting going with that program, I was like, if you guys need a hand, if you need content, you want me on, whatever, let me know. I'm happy to do anything. And Bill got back to me and said, "Yep, well, I think I don't know. I'm guessing just from what I've been reading here and there that I think they're going to work through their pro staff first, which is just fine.
I think so. Yeah,
that's the priority, man. They're doing the work for the Hookset guys. So all good.
What's interesting about this is that they recorded 2 episodes back to back, and what I'll tell you, just okay, from experience in podcasting, that can be dangerous when you're drinking, because what happens is you're having a great time with the first episode, and then you might have had a couple of drinks there, and then you go to record that next episode, and you're a little bit looser than you were when you started the show. So, I mean, while it can certainly either add or take away, we'll see what happens. But I think it's very interesting. I wonder if you'll see a difference when you're like, oh, this is the first show that they recorded, and then this is the next that they did. And if it's going to be that much of a difference between the two. But I really enjoyed it. I think if you haven't checked it out, check out Hookset Hoodlums on YouTube. It's going to be freaking phenomenal. In fact, there is a pro staff group chat on Instagram, and Rodney had jumped in. I think he was out and missed a bunch of the commentary going on there. And when he jumped in, he's like, I'm going to have to go back a little ways and catch up. And then somebody was just like, oh, watch out. I think he said he was at church, actually. It went, this conversation went in the gutter and right back out again. It was insane, but very, very good stuff. I love it.
Another internet item I've got for us. Yep. You and I talked about this, and it actually played out a little bit at Old Glory because I put in an order for 3 reels for this season. So there is an article on Wired to Fish that I think is extremely informative. Yep. And I think you and I both know that when we come across something that can help anybody fishing, I don't care if it's, I don't know, we don't really have mortal or otherwise enemies as podcasters, but if someone were to put something up that we didn't like, if it's informative, we'll still share it. But Wired to Fish has it. Go and check it out. It's about gear ratio selection. The one thing I will note when you and I talked about it, and I don't think we need to go super far down this path, but we noted that the only thing I saw in that article that I was kind of I wish the applications underneath. So if you see like one of the things that I took, I really looked at was, one of the applications they had for high-speed reels was jerk baits. I couldn't disagree with that more because I use spinning rods for jerk baits. Yep. And spinning rods or spinning reels have
notoriously slow. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the slowest you can get, but I never have problems with jerk baits.
Yep.
So I don't know where that was coming from. Just keep in mind, they're not wrong. There's nothing ever wrong. That's the way that author approached the subject.
Yep.
just keep in mind those are suggestions.
You make a really good point there, because it's when you had sent me that link from Wired to Fish, and Wired to Fish is a fantastic resource. They are. I would say that Wired to Fish is among the top tier of great, collections of information, that are out there. But it's funny, because what caught my attention was that was like immediately right off the heels of an episode of Tackle Talk about gear ratios. And then there was a post done by, I think it's Carl's Bait and Tackle, that was like a multi-image post of like details, how to break down your gear ratios, what they mean, and everything else. And what's interesting is none of those lists were exactly spot on. You know what I mean? They're not. And the thing is it just like, it's like I've said for a long time, like fishing is a science as much as it is an art. Like there's things that are fundamentals that, you can't really change. I'll give you an example. A 6.2 to 1 gear ratio reel is a 6.2 to 1 is a 6.2 to 1. That means that 6.2 spins of the reel are happening in one crank of the handle. Like, that's a linear example. But when you look into something else like rod powers, one company's medium could go in either direction. And then you have to factor in the preferences of that angler, what it is that they like or dislike. So sometimes, like, it's just like in music, like the rules are kind of meant to be broken to some extent, but you got to have the other stuff on there. Cody jumps in and he says tactical bassin is really good too. I couldn't agree more. I think tactical bass and wired fish, even Bass Resource has a shitload of quality information. But it's all about, personal preference and like what it is that works for you.
Yes, but I mean, Cody, two things Cody asked right here. Cody's just bombed us with questions.
He did.
I mean, a whole bunch right now. So number one, Cody asked about what rods and reels we both use. A really good place to start with me is the first episode that Bobby interviewed me. I think it's episode 3. Yeah. Because I went through my whole selection and I have not changed that. Like I am comfortable with those rods and reels combos I use for a reason. Now, the last thing Cody said was it's all personal preference. To a point. It's not all personal preference. Go ahead and try to throw a swim bait on an ultralight rod. I like ultralight rods. Go ahead and try to throw, you know what I mean?
I think
there's reasons that rods are rated for weights.
Yeah.
And then you got to work, if you want to work with a tip preference, I got nothing to say about that.
Yeah.
But if, there's a reason those weights are on those rods, and you'll find out.
Rodney's jumping in.
Thank you, Cody.
6 to 1 is his go-to. Very versatile, and that's exactly it. I think he said a mouthful right there. He goes, very versatile for my fishing techniques. That's got a lot to do with it. I mean, if you want to be able to drag something really slow, that 6 or I mean, I would say there's even some bait casting reels that are out there that are that'll go into like 10 to 1. Some of them.
Yeah.
And I
think they broke 10 this year, right?
I think so. It's very limited, and there are some exceptions. Like you had mentioned, with spinning rods or spinning reels that you're generally slower, and that is absolutely true. There's some lines that will offer multiple gear ratios, but that's very hard to come by. Like you really have to be ordering and be able to specify a lot of that. It's really tricky. I had a great time listening to, and it was the episode. It wasn't about gear ratios on Tackle Talk. It was spinning versus bait casting and the difference between the two. And gear ratios was just one of the first things that came up. Where part of the reason why a lot of people lean on bait casters so much is the wide variety, versus on spinning tackle your options for gear ratios. You're not going to find a high speed. You're not running a buzzbait on a spinning combo. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And one of the things, like,
I've tried.
Well, and I did for years before I threw a bait caster. One of the things that I noticed with jerk baits, that's again going back to that one article with jerk baits for me. Whenever I throw them with a bait caster, whether it's 8 pound, 10 pound, 12 or 15 pound, when I throw them with a bait caster and it's a suspending jerk bait, I watch that thing knuckle every time. I do not get any casting accuracy whatsoever out of a bait caster with a jerk bait. For whatever reason, when I use a spinning rod, even if it's the lightest floating Rapala you can have, I can knock that into a 1 foot hole with wind blowing crosswinds blowing at 20 miles an hour. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
But I don't know why. Maybe it's because I learned to throw those jerk baits with a spinning rod first. I don't know. But for me, a much deadlier technique. Now you can't even throw a floating Rapala with a freaking a bait caster anyways, because they're so light. I mean, that's throwing nothing.
Yeah.
It's like throwing a Ned rig with it's throwing a Ned rig with a bait caster, which unless it's a heavy Ned rig, you're just not going to do that. But yes, preference. I'm agreeing with you, Cody. Preference is important, but preference is important after you follow some kind of guidelines with weights, with some gear ratios for certain things. Follow the guidelines first and then base your personal experience off that, or base your choices off that.
You make a really good point, Shawn, with the weights. I feel like if there's one thing that is really important to pay attention to on the details of the rod that you're using, it's the threshold of maximum weights you can throw on that reel. Even, I would say, honestly, I think that takes precedence even over the line size recommendations for that rod, because there's wiggle room, I mean, they give you like line size is another perfect example. Like while there is some sort of a linear angle with the diameter size and the weight rating, different brands are going to fluctuate. There's going to be different changes. So you might have a smaller diameter 15-pound fluorocarbon in one brand than versus another. And, I mean, there's just sort of, in that sense, there's a lot of generalizations, but it's interesting. Like you gotta, that's the one thing I think you nailed it with the weights, with the weight rating on that rod, because if you go to load up a big ass swim, I have tried throwing I tried throwing my 190 Whopper Plopper on 7-foot medium heavy Abu Vengeance rod, and I almost freaking snapped that son of a bitch, man.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's just too much stress.
But it was at the time, it was the heaviest rod that I had, so I had to cast it so gingerly to allow the inertia to take that lure the short distance it was going to take it. And it was, I'm like, okay, so this obviously isn't going to work. Then I switch over to, a 7.6, heavy, and I'm like, this is no problem. I can cast this thing a mile, because it's got the backbone for it. But
yeah, and Cody threw in one last comment about a ratio for his swim bait rod, and that's his personal thing. He rolls with it, Cody. But up in the Northeast, where we have like way, not the Mid Atlantic, I call Maryland the Mid Atlantic, but up in the Northeast, when you get that cold water, go ahead and try to turn an 831, gear ratio rod and try to run a crankbait back. No matter how slow you go, you're going to be barely turning it. And that's like not fishing to me. If you go down to gear ratio, you're still going at the same rate. Less line is coming in.
Yeah.
And you're able to slow your lure down that way. So that's why I keep a lower gear ratio. Now I keep faster ones, but I use them for, I'll use them for swim bait. I'll use them for jigs. I'll use them for frogs. I'll use them, stuff you need to where you need to pick up that line faster. It's not, I think we talked about this numerous times, and I really didn't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we've gone down it. For me, gear ratio is not about like as much retrieval speed. And I know I just said it.
Yeah.
For crankbaits, it is. But as far as like fast gear ratio reels, for me, it's about picking up line when you don't know a fish grabs a lure. So jigs and plastics. Because we talked about it in November when I caught that huge pike. That was with my slow gear ratio reel, that A1 that's 5.6 or whatever, or that Concept A2.
Yep. And
I'm used to dragging stuff, and that pike took off and was sideways to me, and I don't even think an 8 would have caught up to that because it was a 39-inch northern pike. That was a missile. Like I had to catch up to that thing. No matter what reel I had, I was cranking it as fast as I could. You know what I mean? I think that's negligible. But when you throw a lure, a jig, a plastic, a Ned rig, and you don't feel the hit, and when you go to reel in your slack, no matter what, there's always going to be slack. You're reeling that slack. Yeah, you're reeling that slack, and now you have a surprise. Now it's where is the fish, and that's where the speed comes in. How are you going to catch up to him to get a good hook set? That's really where the most important part of that comes in. So yes, Cody, you're right. You can slow down with an 831 in super cold water. I don't think that's going to help you. But the big deal about the faster gear ratios is the slower the lure goes, the more you need that.
Yeah.
It's a good rule of thumb.
He does bring up a good point that I wanted to actually mention before. He's talking about a Revo LTX BF8 JDM bait caster on a 7-foot medium light fast finesse that he can throw small neds on. There are a number, and I actually just saw this in a Facebook group. There is a video in the works breaking down finesse bait casting gear. Like it exists. It 100% exists. Like
you got to look for it though. You're not finding that at Dick's or Walmart or anything like that.
Thing. It's definitely more of a specialty item. that's the thing. It's like there's, I know there are some people out there who are just like, they're not going to throw a spinning combo for anything. Like they're married to their bait casters. That's the way they feel about it. And if that works for you, that works for you. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're catching fish, ultimately you're catching fish. It's one of those things where you're like, the availability for that kind of stuff that's a little bit more specialized, not easy to find. Like, you're also not going to find a 10-speed reel at, every your local bait and tackle store. They're just not going to necessarily stock it because it won't necessarily be shit. There are some bait and tackle stores that don't have left-handed reels, for crying out loud. Let's be honest. So, or it's got to be a specialty order,
The best thing we can recommend to people is if you're looking for ultralight bait casters or 10.1 ratio gear ratio bait casters, just go ahead and give Joe an Old Glory a call.
Yeah.
He'll take care of it.
He'll take good care of you and ship it out right to you. You'll be in good shape. I have been one thing I do want to. This is some good conversation, Rodney. You're damn straight. This is great. This is the stuff that I love getting into. I will throw this out with as far as like one thing that I think that this is just like human nature. I fall into it too. Just this weekend, I found myself looking at the entire lineup of arc rods, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll replace all these. Why? You know what I mean? Like, wait until I have a reason to. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no need to go and have everything match and be all lined up. Everything's got its own spot. So, if you find that there is, a specific reel that you absolutely love and you for this one technique, but maybe you haven't found the right rod for it, that's not like an open and shut book where you're like, nope, that's the rod it's going to stay on. You'll find that rod eventually, and talk to people, find out, maybe that Abu rod that you've been throwing it on is just a little bit too stiff of a rod for the presentation that you're looking at, and you got to look at something else.
Yep. So, we went down that.
We definitely did.
So, couple last things before we get to the main event here of the day, which this is going to be fun. So, you did a little bit of a tutorial for Instagram users on your story. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was absolutely fascinating, and I've taken your words to heart.
So I have, I'm not going to indicate the source where I got this because it's totally off topic completely. But I found this it was a share from another Instagram content creator. And essentially what it was is everybody knows that there is that there is an algorithm to all social media. And part of getting your posts seen is playing toward that algorithm. And there was a graphic that was put up, and I don't know if I posted this on our page. I did on our story. I may put a post up on our page, on our Instagram of it showing it. But basically, there are 4 actions that can be taken, and it ranks those actions with a post. So when you see a post, not a story post, not a reel, anything like that, but when you see a typical post on Instagram, on your feed, and you want to support that creator, there are 4 things that you can do to assist them, and they cost you nothing. And they don't put you in a situation where you have to buy anything. Like, there's this isn't promoting posts or anything. That is important too, but that's something totally different. So the order is this. First is saving a post. Now, if you've ever seen this it looks like a little flag. I'm going to actually hang this right up here so people can see it that are watching. But the one that says first there, that little flag, that shows up on the bottom right-hand corner of a post. What that basically does is it just marks that post as something that you wanted to save to be able to see again for some other reason. You may never actually go and look at this again. In fact, there are some people that what they would do is create what they call tip jar as a collection, and you can save it right to those, and it'll count. Essentially, what that means is different people are saving that post for one reason or another, and it's ticking the algorithm in your favor for additional views. That is really, really, really important. If you're trying to grow your channel, you're trying to make sure that your stuff is seen, that is a great way to go ahead and do it. And it's the number one thing that you can do is save a post. So I've been going, and all the people that we work with, we have a really good relationship with Instagram. I've been going through, let's take a look at, these posts. And as I go through on my feed, I'm not even looking at their profiles, just on my feed, I'm saving them. There we go. We'll save them. We'll save them. We'll save them. And the second one is to share. And the share is that little paper airplane looking button right there. The share is really important. There's a couple of ways that you can do it. When you hit share on somebody's post, you have a choice. You can put it on your stories, which is really handy because then it kind of opens it up and people can show up and visit wherever. But you can also share it to specific users. Well, there is a little bit of a hack there. You can share that to one of your own other accounts and it still works the algorithm. So it's one of these things where save it, share it. The third one is a comment. Comment is second to last. Comments are huge. Try to put at least 4 words in a comment. I've heard that. I don't know how accurate it is. Try to put at least 4 words. Add a couple of emojis or something like that to kind of get it up there. But just some kind of comment that's on there will aid that post to get more visibility. And in days like this, social media is an outlet. It's a way that we kind of promote brands, the way we kind of promote ourselves. We're doing stuff. Part of what we're doing on social media is building an audience, and you got to work that audience. And the last one, the least effective, is the likes. Likes are cute, but that's it. It doesn't have the impact of as much as you think, oh yeah, I liked your post. It doesn't have that impact. While it's nice and easy to do to just go ahead and double tap on somebody's post, it isn't something necessarily that you have to spend, worry about liking every single post. In fact, actually, now knowing that, it makes my life a little bit easier. I don't have to go and like every single thing. But what I do when I see a post that comes up from somebody, I try to do all 4 of those things right there. And whether it's share it to myself, I try to keep my story a little bit more, like the Jigs and Bigs story, alternating. So I won't necessarily share every single post right to the story all the time, but I'll be sending those and sharing them to myself. Or I think I've sent some to you, Shawn. Just share them to whomever, and that way it's like, oh, okay, cool. There's this post, I should see it, and it'll help the creator get more visibility. So that's just kind of a thing that came across my desk, and I was like, this is really good. People should definitely know about it. While I was taking the dog to the vet, I figured I'd explain.
Yeah, and I've jumped on that and really followed suit. Excuse me, and I'm doing a lot more of the story saving just with, all of our extended family. I'm trying to save posts as much as possible. And even if anybody's noticed over the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've gotten very active with my Facebook / Instagram stories. So there's always stuff there. I'm always, if somebody's promoting an event or something that we're involved in, or somebody's promoting, a Paddle and Fin podcast or a new 10 Minutes of Hell podcast, whatever, I'm doing it. It's on there. We're firing it up there. So
I love that. Oh, see, I love this. Yep. Cody says, nice breakdown, Mr. Beef. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think this is just one of those ways that everybody can kind of get ahead, and we want to make 2021 a huge year for Jigs and Bigs. I know Hooks at Hoodlums and Stretching Lines and everybody that we work with together. We just ultimately I just want to see success for everybody. So, that's kind of the name of the game. The other thing is this. I did see something recently. I consume a lot of content about podcasting and social media, things like that. Because let's face it, it's a viable industry. One of the things that I had noticed, there was a podcast. Did I actually just say that? Yeah, a podcast about podcasts called Podcast Therapy. And on there, they had a specialist of social media. And one of the points that got made was that there's a lot of platforms. You could be working the hell out of Twitter. You could be on Instagram. You could be on TikTok. There's Clubhouse. There is all kinds of stuff. And Patreon's technically its own thing, as well. All of these things are great, but the one thing that she kind of took away from it, and it's sort of aligned with the way I've been trying to look at it as well, is to not spread yourself too thin. Focus on the platform that's getting you the most results right now and work that as much as humanly possible. And then try to automate anything else so that if you're, our posts will be on, we'll run on Instagram. But while we do have a few special things that we'll post on our Facebook, all of our Instagram transitions over there onto Facebook as well. So it's got activity that's going on, but there are different things that we have to do on Facebook that we can't. For instance, when we do lives, we do them on YouTube and we do them on Facebook when they're public. So yeah, just something to throw out there.
Yeah, I thought it was very informative. Thank you for reiterating that. I know you had put it on a story, so those things vanish, right?
Oh,
so
yeah, 24 hours.
Now it's immortalized. And speaking of stories, did you happen to see what I posted on my story today?
Today?
Why don't you? Oh my God! Why don't you go on my story and read it to the crowd, because this is like groundbreaking news. Groundbreaking.
Okay. I'm excited here.
Oh boy.
Let's see. Let me look up Shawn the Fisherman.
I'll even provide some background music. Oh
my God. That's right.
Go ahead.
So Stretching Lines Anglers Gear is, obviously a favorite soft plastics company of all of us. Is just announced a brand new drop shot bait that called the Leg Drop. And what's interesting is this. Is that Shawn the Fisherman has made public announcement that this could be the bait that gets him to finally utilize the drop shot. Stay tuned for 2021.
How much you want to bet that I get a hold of a bag of those, can't drop shot them, have no success, and the next thing you know, I'm ripping out 3 and 4 pounders with Ned rigging them.
Well, and that's the thing that kind of drives me bananas, is that it was the one technique where I could outfish you with, simply because you just didn't like it. So
doesn't fit my style,
it doesn't
man.
fit your
Shaq
style.
Doesn't shoot 3-pointers. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you got to do what you got to do.
No,
you play your strengths and hide your weaknesses.
Yeah. No. It's very, very true. It's just, it's one of those things. And that, again, I think plays in part with like preference. It's like you got a way that you got to fish, that what works for you. You just got to make it happen, There's nothing saying that you can't learn new things, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yep. So Rodney jumps in here and he goes that he's pumped for seeing where Stretching Lines heads, about to hit him up with a big order. I know Damien is going to love that. I've been using Stretching Lines plastics for some time now, and at this point, they're the only 5-inch, the 5-inch stick bait that I throw is a Stretching Lines. My Ned baits primarily are that Stretching Line little stinger bait that's just freaking killer. I'm really excited about trying this drop shot bait, the nub, and of course, one of my favorite creature baits out there, one of my favorite jig trailers comes from Stretching Lines as well. So, yep. I mean, it's all good. And that rattling bug, God, I'm looking forward to that rattling bug.
Yep, and they're collaborating with Hookset. There was another video, some news that came out within the past week. So we're out here in Western Mass, Connecticut. We are all just joining hands and saying, "Come join us." We're having a party.
Big old kumbaya fest. That's what's going on. Yep.
Bobby's bringing the roast beef. Chronic Trips is bringing some salad.
Chronic Trips is bringing some salad. That's true.
Yes, they are.
Absolutely. And dessert, apparently, a big cookie platter. That's what I understand. That's
oh boy. Yep.
Buckle up. Pull up your socks.
No. Pull the socks up. Hey, so you also had one thing you wanted to show us before we get into the main event here of the day, which is
our topic of legalities.
Yeah, which I'm actually looking at the clock now because we're at 10:40.
Yep.
And we got about 45 minutes. I think we're going to be limited because I think this can of worms that we're going to open up in a minute.
Well,
but
I think
first off, you got it.
Let's do that. Let's drop the info about this, kind of talk about it, and then maybe carry this conversation over to next week and get some people kind of giving some feedback and things like that. Because not only, it's great with the Patreons, the jig heads being able to jump in and give their feedback, but I think also the other listeners may want to chime in, and I think even regardless, we'd end up revisiting this anyway. So let's go ahead and do this, guys. I have the Dark Horse tackle box for this month coming in here, and I do have a little bit of a spoiler. If you follow Dark Horse on Instagram, you know that this is the first time ever they've done a takeover box. And this box is interesting because the company that they did the takeover with happens to be a company that sponsors Bass Fishing for Noobs and Paddle and Fin. And also happen to hit us up because they happen to be a big fan of jigs. And that company is Jig Masters. Jig Masters. What do they say? When in doubt, get the jig out. And that's like my motto for life. It really is. I'm going to throw that jig any opportunity that I can. I feel like putting this box down on here. I turned up my volume, but I feel like it's okay. I feel like we're in a good spot. Let's go ahead and do this.
We're always in a good spot.
We're always in a good spot. All right, let's do this. You lay down right there, and I will put the box here. So, Jig Masters, the first item in this box is a half-ounce Dr. Six's round rubber is what it's called. It's a football head jig in green and brown. I'm going to open this sucker up because I want to get a good look at these. I do believe that all of these are Ned. I see the warning on them, so I believe that these are more geared toward our non-Massachusetts listeners. So this is what the jig looks like. Let's do this. Nice looking jig.
Nice full skirt. That's a nice jig.
Very full skirt. It's got the keeper on it is the screw-in type, right?
Nice.
So that's not going anywhere. The thing is about the jig head, Jig Masters jigs, is that the heads are very, very unique. This football head jig is nice and wide, but you'll notice looking at it that it has a very flat bottom, which means that sucker is standing up. And I've had, like... I've been going through my coffee. I've got a little bit of the shakes happening. So, imagine that in some current. You know what I mean? Let's do it like this. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Great looking color. They got a little bit of green and brown in here. So super natural presentation. Half-ounce jigs. I don't throw a lot of half-ounce jigs. I really don't. Mainly it's 3/8, but I'll tell you what. I have been throwing a lot of half-ounce chatterbaits, and I might make the transition. I'm going to hold off. There's one here that I want to hold off on showing and make it last because I think this is amazing. So this right here, this one is an 1/8 ounce Gazelle's micro spinner. It's a white, it's like a feather spinner with a little red accent. I think it's a red hair accent that's in it. Oh yeah, this is tiny. Look at this. No, it's a little red thread.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, super finessey. I'll bet you this would crush over the Swift River.
Yep, and I bet you that's a crappie destroyer too.
I'll bet you.
Just the right size for a crappie to get its little paper mouth around.
Yep, absolutely. I'll bet you this would crush at the Swift.
I'm sorry, they're little mealy paper mouths around.
Yes. So this one's pretty interesting. This is a drop shot bait from Jig Masters, and it's not something I ever expected to see. And at first, when I first looked at this on their post, I was like, are these just like feathers or hair jigs for? These are crazy. I thought there were two in here. No, this is a drop shot bait.
Oh wow!
And it's got teeny tiny little finesse hook.
Huh.
Yeah. Super teeny tiny. Oh, God, I kind of hate to give this away.
I didn't see it. It's not on video. Delete this part of the video.
Delete this part of the video.
Yeah. Up next we have, and next we have.
Well, when I show you the one that I'm like really kind of excited to see because this could be very, very cool. So we've got this little drop shot. We have some paddle tails. I did not know Jig Masters did any soft plastics. Totally unaware. These are
abound.
Silver Flash Elite Swimmers, and I'm just going to take out the tray to kind of show it off. But they've got some nice, like pearl with some silver flash. Looks really great.
Nice.
These are like little. How long are they? It doesn't say. Elite Swimmers. These look like they're about maybe 3.2s. All right, and our final item, I think it is another jig, if I'm not mistaken. The final item here is, yes, it is another jig. It's a 3/8 ounce signature flipping jig in black and blue. Everybody's got to have a black and blue jig. You're going to give this thing a workout. 3/8 ounce is my go-to weight to start with. These bags are fantastic, too. And this is their flipping jig, different style head. Take a look at that guy.
I'm sorry, did you say black and blue? That looks like Dude Bud to me.
It does look like Dude Bud. It's a nice. What's nice about this weed guard is I love a weed guard like this that's not too stiff. Yep. You know, like it's soft enough where you'll be all right, but it's not like anything crazy. But yeah, look at the shape of that head.
Oh, it's neat.
Like it is. These are really all about standing up, and that's the name of the game right there. These look really great. So these are all Jig Masters. We're going to be including those in this month's giveaway. The final thing. The stick and swim.
I can't see it very well.
Oh, the stick and spin. Let me take one out of the bag for you.
Why don't you take one out?
It's a stick bait, and it's a stick bait that has a spinner added to the end of it.
Very nice.
Very simple, little 5-inch. It's a fatty, too. Look at the freaking barrel on that sucker. It's a 5-inch.
That boy is thick.
That boy is thick. Damn, boy. I'm thinking this might be one of the ways I like to fish a stick bait is almost like you would a fluke. That's part of the reason why I like stick baits so much. They're so versatile. You know, I love to rig them weedless on like a 2 or a 3/0 EWG hook, and then this is very, very light on the back end of this, so it's not going to drag it down. But what's nice is you can pop it kind of like a jerk bait, and I'm thinking that this might get some interesting stuff here, and you could easily throw a stinger hook on there if you wanted to, just in case, because I'm thinking you're probably going to get bit here at the back end as well. Who doesn't like getting bit on the back end, right?
That's right. Just be careful when you throw a stinger hook on that. It might kind of
weigh it down.
The flexibility.
Yes.
Well, in fact, it might not flutter as much. This is something to think about if you do it. Not saying not to, just something to consider.
This is a really, really good box. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Jig Masters. We're going to have Jig Masters on the show at one point or another, and that should be coming up soon. We have a lot of good stuff coming up on the show.
Dude, we're the bells of the ball.
We really are. Like, we're primed. We've got great guests lined up. We got Cody jumping in saying that the Beast Coast Hustler Hybrid's one of his number one stunner. I haven't fished with any of the Beast Coast stuff. I don't think they make a non-lead variety of their stuff, but I know like everybody loves them. I know Alex Swamp Rat Fishing really loves the Beast Coast stuff. Our guest today is Shawn Snover. He is 603 Bass. He loves Beast Coast. I think he's pro staff for them, maybe? I might be wrong there. I'm not 100% sure, but Beast Coast does some beautiful looking stuff. I just have never used them, but so yeah, that's the Dark Horse box for this month. We're going to include it with the giveaway. Man, we got so much good stuff going on. Is there anything else that we need to talk about, or you want to jump into what I think is the meat and potatoes?
Dude, why don't you start? You brought this up.
Okay.
And it's something I think we touched on in the past, and you really brought it up and said, let's flesh this out. And you actually said my opinion on this would be completely important because I've lived on both sides of this issue.
So a little bit of backstory. My wife and I are horrible people, and we enjoy watching on YouTube public freakout videos. And all 2020 and so far into 21, there's been no shortage for a bunch of different reasons. Karen culture is among us, and Karen culture and fishermen often cross paths quite a bit. And in one of these videos, actually was a compilation, and they were all like Karens and fishermen. And that's just the way it was laid in there. And my wife is not one that's going to let me watch a fishing video while she's conscious and in front of the TV, so she's like, no, but she's like, I think this might be kind of interesting. Let's leave it. Well, there was two things on there, and there were two elements that kind of came to light. One of them, and I was curious about this, was where you would get folks that were out fishing maybe in an area where there were a lot of people, like a hiking trail nearby or something where people would be, and you would get like animal rights nuts that would jump in their face and, like freak out because they were hurting the fish or whatever it may be, so there's that. I was curious if anybody's had any information about that. So go ahead, guys. If you have had anybody who's kind of like jumped down your throat or anything, all our jig heads here, go ahead and comment in here. We'll bring those in. But also listeners, contact us. If you have, shoot us a DM on Instagram or email us, get in touch with us at jigsandbigs.com. The other one is and this actually came up in another podcast by a very, very real popular YouTuber, Lojo. And he was talking about fishing a situation where they had permission to fish private waters and were basically chased out from somebody who was the head of the homeowners association for that complex or whatever it may be, something like that. But that came up to me. I was like, I I never knowingly fish private water. I have on occasion been like, oh shit, I wasn't supposed to fish there. It's only happened a couple of times, but it was either I, happen to access it through a place where you wouldn't typically access this water or something, or for one reason or another. But I was also curious, like, has anybody, ever dealt with private water situations? And I know things can vary state to state, but, Shawn's mentioned before on the show that he lives on a private body of water. And so he does kind of see this from both sides. When it comes to private waterways, you hear a lot of the same things thrown around. Hey, you can't tell me not to fish here. You don't own the water is a very common one. But like, what's the breakdown there? Like, really, like, what's the law say? What kind of a leg does anybody have to stand on? So I'm going to hand it over to Shawn. You can go ahead and jump in and give your feedback because I see that you're winding up to go.
Yeah. You can see the fucking smoke coming out of my ears. And by the way, I think that's the first time I swore today.
Maybe. Yeah, fucking okay. Good for you.
Well, I'm all riled up. I've been thinking about this one for a couple days. So, look, I'm gonna say, like, I'm not an angel. All right. When we were growing up alongside the river, I'm sure I cut through people's yards, knowingly or unknowingly, because sometimes property lines aren't always marked. Now,
that's a big part too.
Yeah, and that's as a kid. All right, kids do stupid shit. They break laws. They don't know it. How does a 15-year-old or 16-year-old know about property laws? You don't. All right. Now, I will say this: there was an old golf course where I grew up that we would cut through to get to the river, and honestly, it was like a game. But that's the way we were in the 80s. Like, I think about that. We talk about this all the time, you and I, when we're fishing. Like, the way we grew up is so completely different from the way kids are growing up now. With everybody's got a camera involved in their life at every minute. We would go out and do stupid shit. Like, we would go out and say, okay, we're going to go to this fishing spot. And we know the groundskeeper of the golf course is either going to A, chase us down, B, call the cops, maybe even throw us an ass beating. You never knew because that was the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it was a game. And we were just stupid. But nowadays, because somewhere between the 80s and now, everybody started getting sued for everything. You know what I mean? Like, the liability is nuts. Like, if something bad happens, someone who's not even involved in it, just because they may own the property there and it's not properly marked, it's somehow their fault, which sucks. So now you see landowners being extremely careful and posting stuff and having to be complete assholes because you let one person do it. The next thing you know, you have 3 people down there. Now there's 10 people down there. Word gets out, and all of a sudden somebody gets hurt, and they turn around and sue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We live in that culture, and it sucks. So growing up as a kid, I wanted to go fishing, and that's all I did. And you're right. I kept in mind, you can't own water, especially not moving water. You can't own moving water, as far to my knowledge. If I'm wrong on this, this is where this is definitely part 1 of this. For part 2, somebody respond to us by next week if I'm saying something that I'm off my rocker with, because I don't know everything. But with living on a private lake now, particularly last year with the amount of people that were enjoying the outdoors for the first time or really getting into it with the pandemic.
Yep.
I mean, how many you got a call from me once a week when I was losing my mind with someone doing something so completely asinine.
Oh, yeah.
On my body of water that at this point, like, I don't want to go talk to people. Because they get confrontational and they'll start saying things like, you don't own the water. You're right, I don't. But you trespass to get to this water.
Yeah.
All right. I always try to think of it like golf, right? And this is so stupid, but it's the only analogy I can really think of to make. So if most, like in Massachusetts, there's a certain portion of your front yard that belongs to the city. If they want to put a sidewalk there, they can. Okay. Yep. So, if I want to use that sidewalk to walk on, can I now walk all over your yard? And give any excuse. Well, I used to walk here before your house was built. Because I hear that a lot. Like, I used to fish here.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. This is my property now. Like, I can't have you on my property because if you break your leg or if you, God forbid, drown, your family's going to turn around and sue everybody. Yep. That's just the way our country is, and it sucks. But that causes landowners on private bodies of water to be super protective. So you've got to know what is private and what isn't. Like, great case in point. There's an open area with a road and a cul-de-sac on my property. It's clearly posted. There's a sign there saying private property, you can't be here, don't fish. No fishing allowed. Where do you think I find all of the garbage in the lake?
Right down there.
All of the lures in the trees. Dunkin' Donuts cups, that's a favorite. Nip bottles and
Fireball.
For those of you outside of the Northeast, we use the term nip bottles for little small. How many ounces are they? It's like
I think
4
it's like
ounces
a 2
of liquor.
ounce, not even.
Yeah, that's a term. I am not using the racial or ethnic term. I know that's a slur, but
I've never heard that one. But go on.
You never heard that?
No.
Well, I have. I'm just trying to preface that I'm not using that as a slur. It was actually in the newspaper the other day. Isn't there a guy that's working on getting bottles like that banned in the state because they're all over the roadways? It's people are pigs.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Slam them and throw them. So in front of this sign, I think 3 times last year, I had to go down there and someone's parked in front of the sign that clearly says no fishing, no parking. And it's like, get out of here. So I've stopped dealing with people. I just call the cops. The cops know it's trespassing. They know what's at stake. And where I have to really kind of say this is something important to note is every private body of water is going to have different rules based on what association or corporation or whoever is running it.
And also sometimes that goes city and town by city and town. Like what I'm not sure if it's state mandated or if it's broken into, individual counties or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There are generally I'll say when I was growing up in where I lived, there was pretty strict rules on where you had to post your signs so close together. Like it had to be marked in order to be whatnot. And part of that means maintaining those signs because they don't necessarily last forever. They get a bunch of, sun or whatever, and they disintegrate over time or something like that. And you don't see one, it's like, it's on the property owner to leave their stuff and be marked, at least where I used to fish. Like that was always kind of the deal. So every spring you'd see brand new signs get posted up everywhere where they're supposed to go. So it was clearly indicated. But that's not the case everywhere, especially when you're talking about residential stuff, because you've got people buying and selling homes and new owners jumping in there left and right may not even necessarily be clear on what's going on. So my biggest takeaway, well, I do want to jump into this because Cody made a comment here. He says, from my understanding, if it's a private pond or lake on a farm or in a community, permission is required. If it's part of the river system here and it turns onto private land, then it's navigable waterway. That kind of makes sense. Like, I see what he's saying. So if you can get to it to what is public water, I'll give you an example. Locally, Redbridge is a river system. There are people that live all over it, but let's say you drop in further up the river and you paddle down into it. There's really, at that point, I see what you're saying. Yeah, either by boat or paddle, you can fish it. Can't access it on private property, he says, but if it runs into the private land, then you can navigate it from the public boat ramp, then you can fish it. See, that sounds like a loophole that would make sense, logically.
So then one thing that I'm learning about with my particular body of water is, where does the owner's property end?
Yeah.
Because, you can fish it, but it's for us, it's the low water line.
Yeah.
And Cody, I know Cody sent us a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not going to go looking into Maryland laws because it's a rabbit hole I don't need to go down to just for an FYI.
Yeah.
But for Massachusetts waters, you can do that, but it's different state by state. It's different county by county. It's different city by city. And then within the city, if you have a body of water that's almost completely surrounded, I have a stream running into mine.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody can get in there with a canoe or kayak. No. And I don't know whose property it is on the other side of the stream. I haven't been able to get in there. But we just have people I've seen where if one neighbor is lax about letting some relatives fish there, the word gets out. And the next thing I know, I had 2 assholes dragging I'm getting upset. Dragging a John boat with a motor, a 5 horsepower motor into the pond where we all know you can't, our pond has nothing past an electric motor for the residents. So I had to call the cops and it was a fight. It was a fight. The guys going nuts. I fished here for 40 years, dude. I don't give a shit. Yeah. The big thing is where homeowners get upset is in particular, I unfortunately have to pay out. I don't have to. I'm part of the association. Yep. I understand where the money's going, but I pay for the maintenance on this lake. Yeah. There's no stocking going on. We're not putting bass in. We're not putting trout in. We're not putting catfish in.
Yeah. So it's not like you have the, I guess I would say the, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not it's not a food source is what I'm getting at. Like, it's not you're obligated to allow people to fish there because you're like, well, the DNR stocks here. Like,
exactly. Yeah. There's no fish going in and out of there. We actually can't eat the fish out of here because my understanding was a few years ago that they were tested for chemicals, and it's just there used to be a small industrial complex on the feed, and it just
I'm familiar.
We have a small fishing lake, and that's just supposedly for us. But like when we pay this amount, and then you see people that aren't paying coming in to use it, it's like, what the hell am I paying for?
Yep.
What am I doing here? And it's up to us as homeowners to say, number one, we have to police ourselves. And this, we have meetings, and it can get heated where, where's the line? Where, can my son fish here? Well, does your son live in the house? No. Okay. Are you escorting them? Because if you come onto the shared portion of the lake and something happens, who's responsible? You know what I mean? Like it's just a matter of responsibility and liability. And unfortunately, younger kids, I get it. Kids do stupid shit.
Exactly.
Like you're going to go trespass, not knowingly or unknowingly, like I just said. But as an adult, if you're an adult, all right, and you're trespassing to fish, like, why are you risking that as an adult? Why are you risking something on your police record, even if it's a stupid misdemeanor?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like case in point. So I had that one neighbor that unfortunately was really lax, and I don't know if it was due to their work schedule or whatever, but they had people just pouring in.
Yep.
There's a couple structures there that are owned by the the association I'm a part of. Okay. People were crawling over those. Somebody breaks an ankle on that, they can sue the association. Now, the other thing was because there's some of the yards don't have fences in between them, between neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I told you this, and I took pictures of it. One of my neighbors was livid. They came home for lunch to walk their dog or let their dog out in the backyard, and the dog wouldn't go outside.
Yep.
Turns out that this next door neighbor that had an open yard wasn't paying attention to people coming in their yard. Two guys came in and brought, I cannot believe they did this, brought one of those scientific research vessels, like the inflatable pontoon rafts, like you see people chasing great white sharks with and shit. They had that in the water, and one of them just decided he was going to mosey on over to the next door neighbors and sit on their deck. Can you imagine if you came home and somebody's just sitting on your deck like, hey, it's cool, I'm here.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First off,
I was losing my mind. I'm getting pissed off talking about it.
Like at that point, like that is a good way to get yourself seriously hurt. You know what I mean? At that point, you are officially like you are on private property. Like, the kind of people that go and do that stuff are absolutely out of their mind. And if that homeowner was it that homeowner's house? Like they were home?
The homeowner that was being double trespassed on?
Yes, exactly. Doubly.
They came over lunch and was going to let their dog out. They have a small dog, and the dog wouldn't go outside because there's a stranger in the backyard hanging out, having a pina colada on a goddamn back porch or whatever they were doing. It was just nuts.
Taking a leak in his freaking garden. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
dick.
I mean, look, I get it. So it's like, it's bottom line, it's private property to get there. All right. So you're right. I don't own the water. I can't own the water. It's flowing water.
Yeah.
I can't own it, but you have to cross through somebody's property to get there. That's trespassing. Yep. That would be literally the same as me deciding to practice my chipping and putting in your backyard and leaving some divots and walking out. Now, I will say this. When that research vessel tandem came out there, the last thing they did, and this is what set me off, we're having some water quality problems, and I'm fighting that battle. And all they did was take all their worms and all the worm casings and throw them in the water.
Are you serious?
I was getting ready to go outside and start a fight or bring my dog out there because my dog's pretty pissed off too. I was just livid. And I brought it up at the next meeting. I'm like I can't deal with this shit anymore. So I don't know where it's going to go. I just keep calling the cops. Like
I've heard
it says private. What the fuck?
I've heard there's, and Cody mentioned before in there that there's a note that, people need to have, written document on them. I've heard that sometimes that doesn't even quantify you to be able to fish because documents can be forged and it can be, you know what I mean? It is what it is. So my whole thing with this is that whether you're the homeowner or the person fishing is just chill the hell out. Like we don't live in a time where elevating a situation is beneficial to anybody. You're not gaining anything. You're best situation is to keep a cool head. And if, somebody comes over and they're like, hey, you don't have permission to fish here. If you genuinely don't, like, take them at their word and then go ahead and do your homework afterwards. If you're convinced that that's a public body of water, look at the law afterwards. But do yourself a favor and play it smart. Walk away. It's just not worth it. Yep.
The thing when I first moved in here a few years ago, I found out about this house from Google Maps, and that is a tool that every fisherman uses now to check out for local bodies of water. And I get that. And one of my friends had said to me, he goes, "Oh, you're moving there? That's great. I was wondering how to get in there."
Yeah,
because people are looking. I'm like, okay, I know that now. Noted. People are looking, and people are trying to figure out ways. And last year was. That was the biggest example. You saw people pouring in from all over the place.
Anywhere they could.
Now, some of the, exactly. Andy from the fishing report is chipping in. Apparently, he's not been electrocuted yet, which is phenomenal.
That's good. We've done a good job.
It's equivalent to walking through my house to get to the state forest behind my property. That is exactly it, Andy.
Yeah,
exactly. So, like, if you do this in another state, you do this in Oklahoma, you're going to be perforated real quick.
Yeah.
Like we don't,
and different states have different, policies in place. So, I think it was that video of Lojo, and I hadn't even considered this, but he was. This video is pretty popular. He is fishing with two other YouTubers, and they're in. I guess they had permission from somebody who lived there to go and fish, and then there was a maintenance person had approached them and had basically just been talking fishing, saying like, "Oh yeah, I've heard over in this end over here, there's a good dusk bite. You should go and check it out," or just kind of like bullshitting. And then a third party came out, and it come to find out this person was part of the homeowners association that was there, and lost their mind and kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing as they were walking away. And, Lojo made the comment and he goes, and I hadn't even thought about this at the time, but this all happened in Florida. And he goes, and I forget the name of the name of the law, but he goes, yeah, he's like, he goes, I was ready to fight this guy. He goes, but at the end of the day, he's like, Florida is whatever that law is. I forget what it is, but he's like, if he had a gun, it would have been game over.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's just not worth it, But I think that there's like ownership on both parts of like the homeowner, because like it goes the same way. Like you don't want to put yourself at risk or your property at risk, for something, that's going on. It's like if somebody's, fishing and, you gotta take up issue with the situation and it's a chronic problem, maybe don't approach them yourself at first. Let the cops deal with it.
Yep.
Or at that point, if they start, getting mouthy with the police, then you're not involved. You know what I mean?
And they don't know where you live for retaliation. Unfortunately,
that
some people
too.
are like that.
That too.
Two things I want to leave this conversation with, and I do actually, unfortunately, I can't even do the outro today. I got to run. Two things I want to leave this conversation with. Number one, the first thing is that I have now heard the same excuse, probably the same three excuses over and over again.
Yep.
All right, and I don't even want to deal with it. I just call the cops. All right.
Yeah.
So the first excuse is
that's the smartest
so and so gave me permission to fish.
Yep.
Okay. You can ask one or two questions and you can find out. I asked the guy that was fishing, I said, who gave you permission to fish here? And he said, he jerked his thumb over at the house. And I said, who lives there?
Yep.
My cousin. What's your cousin's name? Okay. You don't know your own cousin's name.
Exactly.
All right. And then his next response was the second excuse I always hear. I've been fishing here for X amount of years.
Yep.
Let me finish that sentence. You've been fishing here for X amount of years and no one has actually thrown you out for fishing here illegally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have to do that because, again, there's a lot of liability here that people don't know about, and they just think it's a joke. Third one is you can't own water, and which we've covered. We beat to death on this one.
Yeah.
So I've heard those three things over and over again. Again, I just call the cops. The cops know me now. I'm just like, hey, I'm sorry to call again. And, you don't call 911. You call non-emergency line. But they're like, yeah, no problem. We understand. The people are trespassing. They're breaking the law. Call us. We'll deal with it.
Yep.
And they do. So they get people out of there. Go ahead and keep coming back. See what happens.
Yep.
But it sucks. I hate doing it, but the one last story, this is where.
Well, I want to jump in here because there's
go
one other element I want to bring in here, and it's the sort of the last turn of all this is marinas.
Oh, yeah.
When it plays into marinas, when you're fishing and you get someone who has a big ass pontoon boat at a marina or a yacht or whatever it might be, and they come over, and this is what I see a lot, where you'll have somebody that's like super entitled, they paid some money for their spot at that marina, and they're, going out to their boat and they see you fishing their dock, and everything else. I hear the whole, you can't own the water. And this is where I feel like that has merit. I feel like that really does have merit, because this is a different situation. Because in my opinion is this, that dock, I can't damage. I can't damage your boat, but that does nothing. It doesn't say anything about the water surrounding it. I can't park my boat in your dock space, in your spot. That's what you're renting. That's what you're renting. You don't have on lease, the water around that entire marina. That's just me. I'm not sure how. I don't even know how they run the laws on that, if it's ever even been covered. I think it's a lot of gray area.
So with that, there's so many variables right now, like just popping into my head and not knowing stuff about marinas and docks. But when you're on the water with two boats, you're on water etiquette. So number one, if you're trying to get in and out of a slip with a pontoon boat and somebody's fishing your dock, so I don't know who has the right of way on that. I would think it would be communication. Like, hey, I see you're fishing the dock. That's cool. I got to move my boat in and out. Can you give me like 5 minutes to come back to it? I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
But again, you have, you say like somebody fucks up and you can't have nice things. Too many people fuck up and they ruin it for everybody. So then they're lodging hooks into docks. I mean, I see that in Minnesota all the time. Somebody will just clip their line and won't go get their lure if it's under the dock. Then somebody's swimming and get cut or, God forbid, punctured or whatever.
Yep.
So I see both sides of that, but on the water etiquette is kind of, you're bringing on the water etiquette into that, as well as having ownership of dock stuff and slips. One thing I will say, like, even with all the education you can do beforehand, because I think, I pride myself on really finding out what I can and can't do before I do it.
Yep.
So one of the this year, last year was the first time I fished it. All right. Before fishing there, there's a nearby lake. And actually, I can tell lakes because they're out there. So Buckley Dunton Reservoir in Beckett is right near Yoakum Pond.
Yep.
Okay. Yoakum Pond we're using both for a tournament. It's a two lake throwdown or whatever. So before we had ever fished Yoakum, because I did not know where to park, and I don't want to get towed. All right.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to pay for getting my truck out of. And if I'm up in the mountains, then I got a whole nother set of problems.
Exactly.
Buckley Dunton has very clear markings on where to park and where to fish. You've been there with me. And just so happened that one day on the way into Buckley Dunton with cousin John riding shotgun, there was a state police trooper, excuse me, on the side of the road. And I pulled over and I waved him and I said, hey man, I got a quick question. So I know it's listed on the Massachusetts site that we can fish Yoakum Pond. Mm-hmm. Where is the parking spot? Because I don't want to park somewhere where I get towed or where this and that, right? And he explained to me, I showed him the map.
Yeah.
And I said, this is where it showed parking. I don't think this is legit because it seems like a private way. And it's marked after this point, but I don't know what's going on here. There's a small dock. I don't know who owns it. And he said, for the time being, you've spoken to a law enforcement officer. Park there. Let me know if you have any problems, you get towed or whatever, you can go ahead and give us a call. And you've done everything you can.
You've done what you needed to.
Yeah. I've exhausted every avenue of research on this.
Yep.
What happened that day? The day we finally went there, landowner came out and said, hey, what are you guys doing? And I said, look, sir, I apologize. I pulled over. I said, let me guess, this is private. He said, yes, and smiled at me. And I said, so here's what I did. I talked to the state police first. I even gave him the officer's name or the trooper's name. I said, I talked to this guy. We did everything we could. I said, where is the actual parking spot? And he pointed it out. And for those of us fishing the tournament, I'll show you. I'm not telling the general public so you can do their own research. But I did everything I could, and I was still wrong. I apologized, and I moved our vehicles, and we finished out our fishing day. So even though you can do everything in your power, call up your police department, call up, the DCR. What I'm learning with getting these fishing permits for all these different tournaments is for Massachusetts, sometimes it's the state, sometimes it's a town, sometimes it's Department of Conservation and Resources, sometimes it's a private entity. It's and with there's one particular lake I'm working on right now that I got a permit to use the ramp with so many parking spots, but it has a second basin that you can't cross over with because there's a designated shore fishing area. Yeah. And I have to get permission through either a town or a lake association. I have the contact. I have to call them this week. So do your research, find out what's basically legal and what's going to piss people off.
Yeah.
Because again, in Massachusetts, there's gun owners, but there's not as many as Oklahoma, Texas, anywhere in the South.
Exactly.
Like, this is for your own safety because some people shoot first and ask questions later, and you know what? They're legally okay to do so.
They very well might be in that situation legally okay to do so.
So everybody who's listening, please feedback on this. It is now 11:17. I have to get going.
Go do your
Bobby,
thing. I'll finish out the show.
Sorry to leave you in a ditch. Bye, everybody. This was fun. My blood pressure is through my ass right now, and I'm going to go work it out on some elliptical machines and shit and try to get my knee straight.
I love it. Have a good one, dude.
Brother, thank you. I will talk to everyone later. Bye.
All right, see ya. All right, guys. So I'm going to wrap things up here. Basically, I think really what this all kind of gets down to is be careful. Take a tread cautiously. And my advice is, no matter what, don't elevate a situation. Trust me, it's not worth it. To put anything at risk until do what you got to do afterwards. Make sure that you're right, and then deal with it later. Anyway, guys, we got a good interview for you today. 603 Bass, Shawn Snover is with us, and I have a good conversation with Shawn. This guy, New Hampshire angler. I mean, he's doing great stuff. He's a guy who brought it to my attention that there's like high school bass fishing teams happening in New England. This is amazing. I didn't know there were any schools that did this. But anyway, Shawn has some great info for you guys. Check it out. We'll be back after this segment or this quick word from our good friends over at Three Bells Outfitters. We'll see you in a bit. Jigs and Bigs is proud to announce that we're being supported by Three Bells Outfitters. Located in Smith Cove on the Niantic River, TBO is Connecticut's premier paddle sports retailer. They're a full-service shop specializing in kayaks and paddleboards for everything from recreation to tournament fishing. Three Bells is an authorized dealer of Hobie, Jackson, Feel Free, Native, and Bonafide kayaks, as well as many paddleboard brands. Not sure of what kind of SUP or kayak you want? TBO offers free demos of all brands. Want to go for an extended test drive? They have a full-service rental facility on site. Three Bells also offers a complete rigging service for your kayak with such brands as Yak Attack, Yak Gear, Burley Pro, Yak Power, Torpedo, and more. The sky is the limit. You can visit Three Bells Outfitters in person or online at threebellsoutfitters.com. They ship anywhere in the lower 48 states or order online and pick up at the store. Can't make it to the store to pick up your kayak or worried the freight company might damage your purchase? Three Bells Outfitters offers a white glove delivery of kayaks within a 225-mile radius of their store at a rate less than typical freight carriers. They will deliver your kayak, set it up, and answer any questions you may have. Be sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to tell them Jigs and Bigs sent you. Three Bells Outfitters, because life is better on the water.
Hey, what's up, guys? Decided to save myself some money and plant some birch trees in the backyard. No more expensive toilet paper for me.
Oh. Hey everybody, Bobby Roastbeef here. We got an interview segment for you this week. We have a fellow New Englander, I believe like native New Englander too, I think. We've got Shawn Snover, 603 Bass, in the house with us, in the beef seat, if you will. Shawn, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty damn well. How about you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm hanging out. I'm hanging in there. Now, have you been enjoying any ice fishing this year at all?
Ice fishing, yes. Enjoying, no.
Yeah.
We actually just went yesterday and the day before, and I got skunked, which is the first back-to-back skunk ice fishing, but it was bad all around, so I don't feel too bad.
With this year was the year I figured I was going to get on it, and the thought to get serious about ice fishing this winter came to me probably about 2 months too late, because I had kind of squandered the opportunity to gear up on the outdoor, for the cold weather gear and stuff. And I think I screwed myself. I had set a goal of getting out like half a dozen times, and it's not going to happen. I'm just not equipped for it right now. So, plus now I'm in kayak modifying mode, so we got some big stuff going on with that. But
Nice.
very good. So we're gonna have a conversation about fishing, man. We're gonna talk about what your preferences are when you're out there in the water. But to get started, why don't you tell myself and the listeners at home how you sort of got to the point where, well, first off, how was fishing introduced into your life? How did that passion kind of start and find its way into your lifestyle? And then what was the road like to get you to the point where you were creating content, going onto YouTube, creating stuff, and now doing live streams?
All right, all the way back to the beginning. I owe the foundation of everything I know to my dad and my Uncle Billy. And technically not my uncle. He's my dad's best friend, but I've always called my Uncle Billy.
Yep.
I've been in a boat since my mom was pregnant with me. I've been in a boat since before I could walk and talk. My dad had a 14-foot John boat that him and my Uncle Billy bought together. And they put me in one of those like roll around like kid bouncer things.
Yep.
Like you can jump up and down the seat, but it's got like 4 wheels and it's got a little tray in front of you. They put it fit perfectly in between the 2 seats, like the raised seats on a flat bottom John boat.
That's awesome.
They wrapped me in a bug net, and I've been in a boat my entire life.
That's freaking great, man.
I grew up doing it. I was actually born and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts until I was 8 years old. And then
In Lawrence?
Yeah, it was right on the line of Lawrence and Andover.
Yeah. All right.
And then my parents moved us up to where I currently live now in Milford, New Hampshire, back in '93 when I was 8. I've been here ever since.
Nice.
Wife and I got married. Ended up just by sheer luck finding a house like a half mile from where I grew up.
That's awesome.
And I've been fishing up here every year since.
Yeah.
Trying to think, there was like a little hiatus when I was in my teens, like probably around like 12 to 16, especially right around 16 because my parents got divorced when I was 15 or 16.
Yep.
Where I wasn't doing much fishing because I got like really hardcore into freestyle BMX. Mm-hmm. But I still fished a couple of times, and then there was like 1 year where I just didn't because I was right in the heart of my parents' divorce.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, we got to get back out there. So kind of got into it a little bit again. I pulled my dad's John boat out of storage when I was in college, and because we were just going out of a canoe for a few years, and I was like, I do care if I get this thing back up and running. He's like, no, let's do it. So I did, and so I'm 20 at this point. I'm 36 now. It was like 20 or 21. I got back into it. Up to that point, my whole life, I only ever knew what my dad taught me, which was a Texas rig 4-inch black rubber worm.
Yep.
And then I started diversifying the last 2 years I was in college. And I added a Texas rig lizard, going real crazy.
Exactly. Really bending the what's acceptable, I would say.
Yeah. And then one of my buddies was like, well, try crankbaits. That'd be fun. So I started doing that. And like, I remember the day we were out at one of our local stomping grounds.
Yep.
And this is kind of like the turning point that got me to where I am today. And we were getting our asses kicked. Like, I mean, we were just fun fishing, but they weren't where they always usually are.
Yeah.
Middle of summer is hotter than hell. Mm-hmm. And my dad's just a bank beater. We're going in the bank and we're not catching anything. And now I'm really looking at the other boats and I see a couple of guys. And at the time, I didn't know what the hell they were doing or what way Wacky Rig was, but they were just slinging Wacky Rig Senkos out in the middle, which we've never done. And they were hammering them. And I looked at my dad, I was like, we gotta do something different. He's like, nope. And I love him to death, but he's just very like, I'm comfortable doing this. Like, that's what he likes to do.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he still kills it doing that.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a very slow, methodical angler. But I needed more. So I started getting everything I could find. I joined a couple of different forums. I started reading everything I could find on bassresource.com. I started watching a few videos here and there, but I found I liked all of the written articles better.
Yeah.
It didn't have the fluff, and I started expanding. I got into the crankbaits, deep divers, lipless, and then spinner baits, and then jigs, and it just every year I picked up something new. Mm-hmm. And at one point, kind of in the middle of that, my buddy and I started doing like a video gaming channel on YouTube.
Yep.
It got pretty big. It topped out at 52,000 subscribers and like 10 million views after like 3 years.
That's pretty good.
And I took 100% of that money, and some of it went to building a new PC, but the rest I just kept putting back into fishing. Before I knew it, I had all this gear, and I had like one decent graph on a boat. My dad and I went and we split cost on a 94 Ranger, 488 VS, so 20-foot Ranger with a 175 on it.
Nice.
And I got tired of the gaming scene.
Yep.
And right at that same time, my wife bought me a GoPro. And
there you go.
I was like, oh, well, I don't know. Okay, I'll go out and record. And I made a cast-to-catch video. I was like, okay, this is fun. I did that for like 2 years. I make a random cast-to-catch video. And I stopped doing the gaming thing entirely. I was burnt out on that scene. And I didn't do anything for like 6 months. And I was like, fuck, dude, I need a creative outlet.
Yep.
So my buddy got talking to me, and we just kept spitballing. And I was like, right, well, I'll do a slightly different cast-to-catch series. And it just evolved from there. To where I was like, okay, well, screw it. You know, I was uploading to my gaming channel, and nobody was really too interested in it. So I screw it. I'm going to start from scratch. I built on a 50,000 subscriber channel, and I started from scratch, zero.
Yeah.
New brand and everything.
Yep.
And 3 years later, here I am.
That's awesome.
The whole idea was it started out as being something that I wanted to do that was fun. And provided that creative outlet that I wasn't getting from my career at that point, and truthfully, still I'm not getting now. And I kept thinking back to like all the trouble I had trying to get help from local anglers.
Yeah,
because a lot of the guys I was reaching out to were like tournament guys, and they just don't want to talk. So I was like, you know what, fuck this. I can help other people. Like I've gotten to a point where I can learn. I don't want to just be like try and be entertaining. Like I want to be educational too.
Exactly.
I want to provide that information that I was so desperate to find that you really can't find a lot of good information for the Northeast, never mind just the northern climate of the U.S. Everything's southern based.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I started transitioning things towards and trying to get a little bit more better with being informative while still kind of, keeping some of the juicier secrets to myself.
Yeah, of course. It's a fine line to walk,
Yeah, because there's some things that you busted your ass to kind of uncover over the years, and maybe your buddies give you a few too that you don't want to blow up on, because they trust you with that information.
Exactly.
But there's still a lot of good information you can share, and then that provides a good base for new anglers and even intermediate anglers to work from, and that takes us to current day. Talking to my friends last couple months and like ideas I had in my head for the last 2 years about like what else can I do. The live stream was something that I always wanted to do in podcasts, and I had friends that asked me over the years, let's do a podcast. I'm like, I don't know how I want to do this yet. I can't just jump into it like I did before. I need to have a much more coherent plan.
Yep.
And finally, I just kind of said, okay, I just got to sit down and plan this out, and I did, and started last week. Jumped off to a great start for considering how small my channel is.
I mean, I saw your post about like the views that it's gotten with like no real promotion, and that's organic. That's awesome. Like, that's fantastic.
I mean, I'm really happy about it. Like, I was thinking when it was going to happen, because like my videos will average like 200 to 300 views.
Yep.
Not promoting it anywhere, but as soon as I cross promote it to other places, I can get to like anywhere from 5 to like 800 views. It varies, which is pretty good ratio for the number of subscribers I have. And then this one hit 500, no help. I posted it to my personal Facebook page and then my Facebook business page, if you will, which doesn't have that many followers. Like, so I really wouldn't call that promoting it. And it was doing really well, and it got way more likes and everything. Like the stream itself had topped out at 39 viewers for the first episode, but it was averaging like about 32, 33 throughout the whole night.
Good. Like,
that's double what I was expecting. I was thinking like in the teens for the first time doing this for a small channel. That was probably that was my safe guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it ended up doubling my expectations. I was very happy with it.
And live stream is not easy. Like when you're doing a live stream, like I just did podcast roundtable with it was this show, Tackle Talk, Serious Angler, and Paddle and Fin. And I didn't realize, but Bailey from Serious Angler, his show is a live stream. Like he does, and he just takes the audio and drops it as a podcast. And then so now when you listen to it, you're like, yeah, that's not easy to do. I like to edit. I like to go back and edit my shows and make sure that it's, it sounds as organic as it can be, but also, I get we're anglers, we're fishermen, it's like we're not public speakers necessarily. Some of us are, and it definitely works out, but most of us aren't. And, we have conversations that kind of go all different ways, but like live streaming is crazy. I watched I think, what night was it that you went live with that? Was it a
last
Friday?
Thursday?
Oh, it was last Thursday.
But then, the video went up on YouTube basically Friday morning.
And that's when I caught it, was when it had gone up on YouTube, because I got home from work late, and I think it was probably just after you guys had wrapped or within an hour or so. And I saw it on YouTube. I watched it back. I'm like, this is the first live stream? It's fantastic. I'm like, this is really great stuff,
Thank you.
Yeah, I was highly impressed. It was really good. So tell me a little bit about like your favorite spots for fishing. Like you mentioned fishing deep. That's like, I see in your videos when you're, especially like lately with the winter stuff, like you've got a skill set that's very versatile. Like when to fish finesse and you're comfortable with it. But like you said, going with deep diving cranks and things like that, that's sort of a place where not only myself, but a lot of the anglers that I've spoken to, especially that are a little bit more finely honed in one specific technique, whether it's beating the bank or they're fishing finesse or something like that, they kind of lean on something as a crutch. I think that there's a lot that you can kind of offer your viewers as far as education and also think outside of the box, so to speak. What's your specific preferences for fishing as far as season of the year? Like, what do you like? Just being completely selfish, what is the time of year you like to be out there?
Dude, I get a major stiffy for a good jig bite in timber or against rocks.
Yeah.
I live for a good jig bite. And that's my 1A, and my 1B would be a good spinnerbait bite when the wind is ripping. Because when you get into a good pre-spawn, 50-degree water temp, winds fucking howling 30 plus miles an hour, you can barely keep things going, and you're just burning that spinnerbait, and it stops like a 100-foot tree hit it going the wrong way in the current. It's just that, when they thump a jig, that's one thing, but when they damn near rip the head right out of your hands on a big old heavy duty spinnerbait, that's 1A, 1B. I go back and forth which one I like better.
Yep. No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I've never, I've tried to throw a spinnerbait as often. I've always heard, when that wind is gusting, that's the time. When there's so much chop on the water, that's when you want to throw that spinnerbait. For whatever reason, I don't understand it, but and I'm still trying to get that bite, but I'm with you on the jig bite all day. All day long. Now, what about as far as bodies of water that you like to fish? Now, there's anglers out there that they need to have current. So river systems and even small creeks are just, that's their cup of tea. Do you lean more in that corner, or are you looking for small to medium ponds, or are you looking for small ponds for pond hopping, or larger lakes that you can break down section by section?
5 years ago, that would have been a very specific answer.
Yeah.
And now I don't have a preference. I like doing it all.
Yeah, that's great.
Because I've worked really hard the last, 8 years, really, 8-9 years, because to be as well-rounded as I could.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick one thing, it would be kettle ponds that I'm very familiar with, that I grew up fishing, all those kind of things, 100 acres or less, your deepest pocket's maybe 12 feet, but you've got a variety of good vegetation, rock piles, down timber. It's got a bit of everything to offer you. So you can fish 3 very unique types of structures and do kind of 3 very unique different things, even inside of one day at the right time of the year. So I guess I kind of prefer that. Plus, it's just nicer because you don't, get a ton of traffic in those places, so you can just go out there and be you and enjoy the outdoors for what it is.
It's true.
But then there's times I really like being up at the big lakes and get a few spots that you hone in on, and then you start branching out, and all of a sudden okay, places 1, 2, and 3 have always been good, and this is what they offer. Oh, holy shit! I found 3 more spots identical to that, and then you hammer on them. I like that too. You go to a nice big lake and you find a new spot in an area that you didn't really maybe look at before, or you just constantly overlooked, and you figure them out. I like it all.
That's definitely one of the nice things about big water is once you're talking about stuff like that, you've got you've got a lot more adventure to uncover. And that can change throughout the year. So I think that like that's one type of angler. And then, pond hopping is amazing. It's its own sort of thing. It sort of like brings you back to childhood. You're like, it's something that you can break down in a smaller amount of time. But, it really is. It's just, there's something about like big water. To me, it's intimidating. And that's what I'm actually working on now is reading maps and, marking points so that I can go and line them up with what's happening under the surface, naturally as the seasons change so I can follow them. But that's unbelievable. Why don't you give me your top 3 like confidence baits?
Oh man, number 1 is absolutely going to be a jig, and that can vary greatly as to what kind of jig it is, depending on the time of the year.
Yep.
Just a straight up 3/8 ounce skirted football jig with like a 3.5-inch craw trailer. Something super generic, but I'll play around with the colors. Slash a spider jig, which is just a twin-tailed hula grub on a 3/8 ounce skirtless football jig.
Oh, okay.
And that I do like killer with in cold water.
Yep.
Just that smaller profile does really, really good, dude. Like 45 degrees and below, like either side of 45 degrees to ice out or ice in, I always have a spider jig tied on. But a jig of some kind is killer. I can make that work from ice out to ice in on any body of water. I absolutely will always catch a fish on a jig.
Yeah.
Second to that is probably a drop shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Because same deal. Almost ice out to ice in. I can catch fish on a drop shot, and I can do it from anywhere from a foot to 60 feet.
Yeah.
Depending, and for both species. Largemouth, smallmouth doesn't matter. I definitely use it a lot more for smallmouth, and it's definitely my go-to for deeper water, but I've had some really killer days for largemouth fishing stupid shallow with it and just upsize my gear.
Yep.
Oh man, third to that, probably be a spinnerbait. I don't do as well with it all year long, but I like how versatile it is. I can still get it in and around cover and structure. I can fish it a little bit more in places a little bit better than I can, say, like a chatterbait, though I think a chatterbait's better in colder water. But spinnerbait's my confidence bait. And I've caught, oh God, best guess percentage, the total number of fish, 5 pounds and bigger, at least half of them have come just on the spinnerbait.
Oh, really? Okay, so that is significant.
Probably a higher percentage bait than that. Like it's stupid how many of my 5+ pound fish have caught on a spinnerbait.
That's freaking bananas. That's when you put numbers like that out, that's pretty significant, man. And you're right, like that's the beauty about spinnerbaits is that you can throw them in timber and you can throw them in some real gnarly stuff, and you don't have to feel too concerned about like hanging it up like if you're throwing something with treble hooks or anything like that. It's like it's really, really versatile and it gets the job done. I love this question. It's been one of the most popular ones. And because you've been fishing for so much of your life, I'm interested to see where you come from with this. But you know that famous saying where they say fishing tackle actually catches more fishermen than it catches fish? So in your entire lifetime, what do you think is the most ridiculous fishing tackle trend that's kind of been out there? The follow-up question to that is two-part. Have you tried it and did it work?
Damn. That is an excellent question.
I love that question.
I can't think of anything ridiculous because I am very much a traditional fisherman. So like I've never really paid attention to anything that looked gimmicky.
Yeah.
Maybe those like weird ass spider things from Lunker Hunt.
Oh yeah.
Just because
that comes
they're
up a lot.
So outlandishly different, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But just bad habits from when I was younger, when I had a really negative attitude towards those things and negative perception, and like being such a diehard, quote unquote traditional bass angler.
Yep.
I still have this slightly negative initial reaction to seeing something really wonky looking like that. Like it's a 4-inch spider. What the hell's gonna eat that? But I mean, we do have huge water spiders here, so it's not
true.
that outlandish. And bass don't really care, but I sometimes give them too much credit for how smart we think they are.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. And no, I have not tried it. My friends have. And also, it looks good. I got nothing against it. But that's the only thing I can think of that really comes to mind for like kind of that wonky, like, what the hell kind of reaction initially.
Yeah. Exactly. It's, it's funny. I had the same feeling about the Spro BBZ rat initially.
Yep.
And I had to eat all my words. I was talking with Todd Grubb over the summer. We did when he was on the show, and he was talking about how it's one of his favorites to throw, especially for night fishing. And I have our show sponsor, Old Glory Outdoors, got a bunch of them in stock. And I was talking with Joe, the owner, and he says, yeah, he's like, they're flying off the shelves. He's like, you should really give them a try. Just give it a shot. And I was like, screw it, let's do it. And it's been a big fish machine. It really, I've got to eat my words on it. I was like, because it looks almost like you've got kids, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you ever bring them on vacation to or something like if you ever bring them to Disney or something in the gift shop, it looks like a little souvenir mouse from Disney. You know what I mean? It looks so
you're absolutely right, especially that pink one.
Oh, that one especially. And that was the one that I was actually looking for because I heard that it was just dynamite. I got the brown one and the gray one.
Got it.
I can't find it.
There's a reason why you can't find it.
And I got a guy, and I can't find it. I'm like, what? So I'm trying to, piece it together, but I love it. I got to replace the tail on one of them before we get open water, so I can have it, ready to go because I'm looking forward to throwing it again. But you're absolutely right. Like the spiders, I've got a couple of them in the package. I haven't thrown them. I kind of have been holding on to them as novelty, prizes for when we're finally able to do podcast meetups and stuff. But I'm like, I kind of want to throw. I know they catch fish, but
right,
yeah. It's just bananas.
To your point about the rat, don't kill yourself trying to replace the tail. You don't need it.
That's interesting.
It's nice to have.
Yeah,
but really, it's that knock. I fished with Todd a bunch in the past, and he was one of. There was somebody else too, but I think he was the first one that really sold me on that rat.
Yeah,
and the 50 size because. Again, that whole traditional aspect of my brain, I saw the 50. I was like, there's no way anything's going to bite that because I wasn't really into the big swim bait scene yet.
Yeah, same here.
And I remember him saying, he's like, no, dude, throw the 50. Because I bought the little one, 2 sizes down from that. And then I caught a couple of fish, but then I remember him showing me it, and I could hear it knock. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then I bought it, and that thing is killer.
It's so funny. I could only get my hands on the 40, and I've been catching just monsters with it. I mean, it will catch small fish as well. I've caught nibblers. That's our little insider nomenclature for I think anything from a 9. Or no, from a 10 to a 12-inch bass, we call them a nibbler. And, it'll catch smaller bass like that, but I've thrown that thing, and it's because especially when I'm on the kayak and you're that close to the water, first thing in the morning, there's no sounds anywhere, and you can hear that thing knocking like someone's knocking on the door. It's crazy how loud that thing is. I've thrown that thing toward a beaver hut just because it's always a target for me. Anytime I see a beaver hut, I'm like, I gotta fish this thing. I know there's some beasts out here, and I just bombed this thing from a distance, never expecting that once it hit the water, it'd get just hammered right away, and it has. Holy crap. Yeah. That's good to know though about the tail. Maybe I'll hold off on it. I am looking to get the 50 though. I've heard good things, and once I'm able to get my hands on one, I think I'm gonna get that pink and purple one too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad news. So much money on tackle. This time of year is terrible for that. Oh,
I know.
So I'm a big fan of. Well, actually, let's back up a minute. So, do you do any tournament fishing, or you fish basically for yourself, just as a way of life?
A bit of both. I actually focused on becoming such a well-rounded angler because I joined a club the year before my kid was born. So 2011, I fished a club for the first time, fished the whole season, and got my teeth kicked in. I went into it thinking I knew a thing or two because I'd fished a couple.
Yeah.
When my dad and I got our first bass boat back in 2007.
Yep.
And I was already feeling really good about fishing for largemouth. And then, finally got a real bass boat, fished some bigger ponds, and I was doing really well. So I was like, yeah, dude, let's join a club. We can do well. It was a small club. And again, we got our teeth kicked in. So once my son was born, I was like, I'm going to put tournaments on the back burner for now because I want to focus on getting better. I realized at that point I knew nothing about fishing glacial lakes. Lakes region, where so many of these tournaments were.
Yep.
So since that point, I've never joined a club again, but I will fish an open or two every year.
Gotcha.
So, and I get picky about it because most of them are on Winnie, and I hate fishing that lake on Sundays because it's just a 3-foot washing machine.
Yeah.
Even on like no wind days, it's just so much traffic.
Oh, absolutely.
But I've got places that like I know extremely well, like Newfound Lake. If there's a good open where there's going to be 20, 30 boats and it's a good buy-in, I will fish that every time because that's one of the few lakes that I have. I don't care what time of the year it is.
Yep. It well enough.
I've put in more time in that lake than the majority of people in this state. I know it extremely well. I'm fishing that one. Any chance I can get at good money on that, I'm fishing it.
Cool. Very nice. Now, with that said, I am a big believer in I'm wrestling with tournaments right now. I've dabbled, once I feel like I actually have some knowledge that I can rely on, I'm gonna dive in and give it a real full send and go for it. But for me, a lot of fishing has always been about the experience. Like there's nothing more zen-like than going out and fishing by yourself. I think that's one of the best ways to reconnect with nature is just to be out there by yourself. But there's something to be said when you're with a couple of people. Like when you're in good company, the whole thing just becomes an experience for everybody. So this question kind of came from that way of thinking. What are top 3 people that you would love to fish with, living or dead?
Gerald Swindle and Seth Fider, right off the bat.
Okay.
Those are 2 guys that are
all right,
incredibly knowledgeable. They seem really down to earth. They know their shit inside and out, and they're just, they don't. How do I put it? I don't really know how to explain it. They're not like they don't seem really stiff. Like they've been in the pro scene for so long. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but they just seem more approachable. And again, I don't want that to come off as a bad way to any other pros because I'm sure it's not. But they have a much more approachable manner. Yeah. And then third on that list would be Mark Zona for all the same reasons.
Mark Zona,
and I love watching his shows. He has got that, if there's any one guy I would love to emulate, if I had to pick somebody that I would frame what I do after, or model it after, it's Zona.
Same.
He's got the perfect blend of educating, but being entertaining without being overly the top and obnoxious.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so many other channels are well known for, and if they that works for people, and that's what they want to do, but that's not me. I can't be that, and I don't really want to be that. But I'm upbeat, and I try to find that fine line.
Definitely.
So those are the 3, just because they're all 3 of them just seem like really good dudes, really well rounded. Like you could probably gain some incredible insight and perspective from them. Both, one dude that's been at it forever in the tournament scene that's kind of older, and G-Man. Swindle that's, Z-Man that's been on both sides of it from the announcing and the tournament side. And then someone like Fider, who just kind of has been relatively new to the scene and seeing it from that perspective. Like that, those are 3 guys I would kill the fish with.
That's awesome. That's freaking awesome. What is it that you like to listen to either on the way to the water to get you hyped up or even on the boat while you're fishing?
It's funny you bring that up because all my friends thought I hated music for the longest time because when we drive out to the lake, I never listened to music for years.
Oh, really? Okay.
I get distracted easily.
Yeah.
So if I'm listening to music that I really like, and somebody wants to have a conversation, I have to turn it down or I can't focus.
I gotcha.
So I hated that, so I just never played music. And one of my buddies, John, the owner of Wicked Custom Rods, was randomly like, "Hey, what the fuck do you listen to?" Because we never listen to music when we go anywhere. Yeah. I was like, "Oh, dude, I listen to everything." I like anything that's fast and angry. What probably kind of cliche answers, but the ones that readily come to mind: Coheed and Cambria, Dance Gavin Dance. John just put me on a new band, Periphery, I think it was one.
Okay.
God, yeah, anything like that, almost screamo, emo-ish kind of music from the 2000s. That's. I mean, I graduated high school in 2003, so that was the stuff I listened to and I've stuck with.
Yeah.
Anything that's just really, really fast and makes you want to run through a wall.
Yep, exactly.
That's what I like to listen to.
I hear you. Yeah, and that's the same thing. That's what I say to people too. I kind of listen to everything. I've been a DJ for going on 30 years now, and my music collection, my music tastes are extremely wide. Sometimes I'm listening to stuff like you're talking about, like, super crazy extreme metal, or I'm listening to, one of my favorites that I listen to when I'm fishing a lot is Action Bronson, and I don't know why.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Another thing that I'll bounce all over the place. There's actually some like what I would consider punk blues that I like to listen to a little bit, like Left Lane Cruiser and stuff like that. And it's just, it's all about the mood. But one of our sort of the amazing contacts that we've made doing this show is this, you might know on Instagram, Delirious Angler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So D and I have fished a number of times, and the first time we had gone out, we went out on his boat. He does a lot of like the Slay Nation tournaments, and he does the small boat stuff. So we're in his boat. I forget where we were. We're somewhere in Mass, and we're fishing this little river system, and he pulls out this Bluetooth speaker, and I'm like, really, man, on the boat, you're listening to music that doesn't like, disrupt the fish? He's like, well, I'm not cranking anything. He's like, but, he's like, I have to have my tunes. And I was like, all right, cool, no problem. And I had the best day of fishing. He did not, but I had the best day of fishing that day. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to be said about this. So I think I'm going to start bringing a small Bluetooth speaker on the kayak with me, because I've since discovered headphones are a terrible idea. I miss way too much. Way too much. So yeah, I think that might be the jam for this spring. Come up with a good playlist or something. But
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I give props to anybody that can do it. I can't listen to music in the water. I've tried a few times, and like my life, my work career is just so flipping hectic all the time, and it's just noise. And I come home, 2 young kids, and it's just constant noise.
It's a different kind of noise. Yep. Yeah.
So like Sunday is the only day where it's like, no, I want peace and quiet. Thank you. The only noise I want to hear is my rod, just my line singing when I set the hook.
It's funny, man. You say that because I'll be DJing a party, pre-pandemic and everything, and it'll be great. And like people are just like, one more song, let's do one more song. And I'm like, no, it's party's over, guys. We got to wrap it up. And I'll be tearing things down at the end of the night, and I'll get in the truck and I'll be on the way home. Silence.
Yep.
Silence. That's all I want. And I'm just, sometimes like I'll throw a podcast on if it's a long drive. So I've got something to kind of dive into. But the last thing I want to do is listen to any kind of music. It's just, I'd rather the silence and like crack the sunroof and get the natural sound of the air, as I'm driving along the highway or something, and that's it, man. There's definitely something to be said for that. Have you traveled anywhere in the country specifically with the intention of fishing?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Good.
St. Lawrence River twice now.
Oh,
Last
wow.
year,
Okay.
August 2020, and then August 2019.
Nice. Very nice.
And that was awesome. We stayed, I guess Cape Vincent. It's like one town down, 3 Mile Bay, I think is actually the name of the town, even though that's the actual name of the bay. It's kind of weird.
Okay.
But yeah, we essentially stayed right at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario. We found an Airbnb both years that were stupid cheap.
Yep.
Set up in a great spot, 15 minutes in any direction, and we had one of 5 different free boat launches to choose from.
Oh, wow. You can't ask for a better setup than that.
No, and the farthest drive we had, I think, was 45 minutes to Keewaydin State Park. So there's the Thousand Islands Bridge crossing, the big bridge.
Yep.
There's the Thousand Island Tackle Shop right next to it. And
then
then just north of that is Keewaydin State Park, which puts you right in Alexandria, like Alexandria Bay. It's like kind of where the American Narrows are. So it's a really, really good stretch of water from there. And it's like a, 15-mile run-up river.
Yep.
Downriver to Chippewa Bay, where there's also some really good fishing.
Okay, cool.
So, dude, it was seriously the perfect spot. If the wind was right, you could fish Lake Ontario. We were 5 minutes from a launch that launched the Eastern Lake Ontario access point. And then if it was really bad, but we still want to fish Lake Ontario, we were right there for 2 free boat launches on Shawn Bay for Lake Ontario, or go up into the river, 15, 20-minute ride up. Like, it was awesome. I loved it.
That's killer.
I just wish the fishing was better.
Yeah. Oh, of course. But yeah, I mean, that I think is like, for me, it's always been, I've actually this year I'll finally be able to get up there and fish, and I'm hoping I can bring my dad with me because he fishes up there quite a bit. Is Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get up there. I know the EKF championships are up at Champlain, and it's in September. And it happens to work out where I'm going to be there to cover that anyway for the show. So we're going to go up there and, you know, I mean, in between the time that I'm, you know, collecting content and, you know, interviewing people and stuff like that, or, you know, working either the beginning or the very end of the tournament, it's all that time in the middle. I'll be doing fishing myself. I'm really stoked for it. But what's on your bucket list for places to go?
Champlain is still one of them. I finally made it there for the first time this year, and we fished down at the Ticonderoga end, but we launched on the Vermont side.
Yep.
And we ran probably like 25, 30 miles of the lake that way.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
But, you know, one of my really good buddies, DJ, he was fishing a tournament up there, and he's very much a shallow water, largemouth guy. Yep. But he had heard of a few good spots for smallmouth. He's just not that confident doing it.
Yeah.
I am. So he's like, hey, you want to come up here and shadow some spots with me and just like do your thing, and I'll feel comfortable and confident if you are comfortable and confident doing that. I was like, sweet. So yeah, went up, me and then his buddy caught a 3 3/4 pound smallie, like first spot. No, second spot. And the bite died. And we talked to a couple other guys I know that are up there that are really good that they're like, yeah, dude, smallmouth bite died up there. They were fishing there the same day, same area. So for the last 2 hours, we went back down south and we fished a spot he had with grass mats. It's the first time I ever got to punch mats.
Oh,
unlike anything I've ever done, and I can't wait to do it again. Literally throwing a 2-ounce tungsten weight, 40 feet straight up, and it still wasn't punching through. That's how thick the grass mats were.
Are you serious? That's insane.
I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. Like I had to record it like with my phone to show my buddy Andrew because he couldn't make the trip. I fling it up and I'm like 1, 2, 3, splat. Like it was insane. But that's what you had to do to get this thing to punch through. But then you'd hit a spot where it punched through. And it just throwing any variety of craw. Yeah. Jig it up once, twice, slam. And you're just trying to pull these things up through 2 feet of matted grass. So it was I've been there, but I didn't really get to fish it because I was kind of helping my buddy scout it. And then I went a second time, but because my wife's last minute change of work schedule, I only got to fish it for 2 hours my second trip. So I really haven't experienced Champlain for what Champlain's known for. So instead of doing the St. Lawrence River this year, like we did last 2 years, we're going to go up and stay on Champlain for a week in May.
Nice.
And we're going to fish the northern end. Beyond that, because that's a manageable trip. It's like a 3.5 hour ride, so I'll even do that for day trips now, moving forward. Now I know it's not that bad. I want to go somewhere south. We were actually, my other buddy and I were just talking about potentially going to either Gunnersville or Chickamauga next month.
Nice.
But I can't because of work, and if I travel out of New England with COVID, then I have to quarantine.
Yeah.
And I'm currently under a contract position, not full time, and
you don't want to mess with that.
Even though I can work from home, they're like, I don't want to screw with it and not get paid for 2 weeks.
No, I definitely get that. Like this, it's crazy because in one way, I was having a conversation with our show sponsor Joe over at Old Glory, and we were talking about how in some ways, as far as content creators and retailers for anything having to do with the outdoors at all, COVID has been amazing. Like it's got the interest up there. People are watching, people are consuming content, they're buying products so they can get out there outside themselves. Because especially like when you look at this last spring, there was nothing to do. Like you had nothing. There was nothing to do unless it was outside, and it worked really well. And now I think you're running into the other situation where you've got a bunch of people who are really fired up and maybe want to travel, and it's the same story I've heard from everybody. We want to go do this, but we're waiting for this. And we're dealing with the same thing. It's like there's stuff that we wanted to do. We just got signed up with MAKB to run the western part of Massachusetts division of the KBF trail. And it's fantastic, but there's all these like sort of like angler events like to close some things out we would love to do. Can't do them. Right. It's actually bananas, but it's nuts. What now? When you go out, like you're a big boat guy. I assume you've got a rod locker full of gear ready to go. But like, what are your top 5 go-to combos? Like the things that you're keeping on the deck.
Jig rod number 1.
Yep.
And then my drop shot rod. So spent a lot of years fishing all my Walmart gear, and then when I mentioned earlier the gaming channel blew up, I started replacing like all of my Walmart combos. Every time I learned a new technique when I was still learning, I just picked up a $20 rod, $20 reel, called it good.
Yep.
And I started replacing things, and then like the last 3 years, I've really started replacing things. Now that I'm really honed in and what I like, I splurged, and I went and had a custom rod built for my jig rod, and I threw a loose hypermag on it.
Yep.
So it's like I ended up having it built by Dragon Custom Tackle, and he was doing it like he was going to try and expand into rod building, and then it was a disaster with the suppliers, so he ended up not doing it.
Yep.
Because, it took like a year for all of us to get our stuff built, because we had rods shipped 3 times where everything was broken. So retail value on this rod should have been $600 just for the rod. It was a $250 blank, but I bought everything on Black Friday sale, so it only cost me like $350, which is still a lot of money for a rod. But I do like jig fishing, ice out to ice in. Yeah. If there was any one rod I was going to splurge on and make just an insane combo, it was that. So that's rod number 1. That was always on the deck.
Yep.
Behind that, my drop shot rod, because I can do a bit of everything with it. It really is ideal for drop shotting, but I can throw a shaky head, I can throw a Ned rig. Yep. And that's another one that had a custom built rod from Wicked Custom Rods built. 7.2 medium. I think it's just a medium. Rated for 1/8 to half ounce. Just ridiculously sensitive. They let me test a rod that was built almost to the same exact specs in 2019 when we went to the St. Lawrence River.
Oh, cool.
Dragging a drop shot in 50 feet of water, and I could feel every time a goby hit it. That's in 50 feet.
That's insane.
Just a goby, just tap, 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 and then thump, and you just get trucked, and you realize, holy shit, I'm in 50 feet of water.
Yeah, that's bananas to even consider that being the situation for that kind of depth.
Yep. Oh, but then everything beyond that, like I try to be as value conscious as I can with what I own. So literally every other rod I own has multiple purposes. One of them is going to be my new swim bait rod, which is another one from Wicked Custom Rods. It's an 8-foot heavy. It's rated 1/2 to 3 ounces because I like throwing some bigger baits now, which I started doing like 3 years ago. And not like what most people would probably think for bigger baits. I like throwing a 1/2 ounce swim jig with like a 5-inch Kitech type trailer on it.
Gotcha.
Which is it's big.
Yeah, but it's not
unquote,
big.
Right. But it's great on that 8-foot rod.
Yeah.
Or if I'm like, you know what? I'm in a good bite. Now I can throw my big stuff.
Yeah.
Then I still got that rod. And it works. It covers a whole range of moving baits. And then depending on where I'm at, if I'm fishing casting gear and I'm going for largemouth, I'll have a 7.2-ish rod, heavy action, heavy fluoro, like 17 to 20 pounds straight fluoro. And it's for either spinner baits or chatter baits, or maybe I'll throw like, heavy duty Texas rig stuff into like thicker vegetation.
Yep.
And then kind of the other end of the spectrum, like a 7-foot medium casting rod with 12 to 15 pound fluoro for lighter Texas rigs or weightless flukes.
Yep.
Weightless Senkos, whatever. Like those are kind of like my searching baits setups for a very varied range of what I can do.
Yep. That makes sense.
I think that's 5.
Yeah. I think that is 5. And like you make a really good point. I think that, that's where I think that's the best way to improve your gear is, learn a technique. Don't worry about having the ideal situation. But once you've kind of figured out that you're comfortable with a technique and at least you have a starting point with something that maybe didn't cost you a ton of money out the gate, then replace that rod with something that's higher tier and make that splurge when you know that it's going to work for you. You know what I'm saying? Like to kind of graduate into it. But also like when you got to demo that rod before going with it, like what a perfect scenario, Oh yeah. That's perfect.
Yep. And there was like, I was going to say like, no, dude, I'll buy it. But he's like, no, just take it out. Cause
give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to build anything for you beforehand anyway. You're going next week, take the rod. I was like, okay, sweet. So I did. I was like, oh my God, this is just magical.
Yeah, that is really, really awesome. I love this next question because it kind of takes people out of their element a little bit. So it's like we call this the one rod, one reel challenge. Nothing to do with a YouTuber, but what the challenge is basically is like there's an unnamed pond where there's the only thing you really know going into it. It kind of has a little bit of everything. There's some rocks, there's some lilies, there's some patches of grass here and there, but it's not completely choked up with weeds. So we'll say it's like partly cloudy, and you can choose one rod and one reel, and then we want to know what those are, and they don't have to be from your arsenal either. Like we're giving you the Jigs and Bigs corporate card, you could build whatever you want, and we want to know the rod, the reel, and then what you're spooling up on it, what you intend to throw.
It's going to be a 7-foot medium, but heavy on the medium side of things, with like a moderate fast action. With either straight 12-pound fluoro or 20-pound braid. If I'm allowed to do this, I would go 20-pound braid and then bring 12-pound fluoro to tie on as a leader. Depending on what my day is doing.
Yeah.
I'll either tie in the leader if I'm fishing rocks.
Yep.
Because I want the abrasion resistance of the fluoro. Mm-hmm. Or if I get into a good topwater bite, then I've got my braid.
Yep.
And I just take the leader off. And then that 7-foot... That's still a pretty stout rod. In 12-pound, still like, dude, I have a 7-foot medium rod from Lew's that's on the edge. It's like on the heavy side of medium.
Yeah.
And I have horsed some big fish out of some insane cover with that rod on a 1/2-ounce jig with 12-pound fluoro.
Yep.
Like, I surprised myself. And that's what I love to do. And it just... For whatever, I forget what made me do it, but I did it one day and it was just working, so I didn't even bother picking up regular jig rod. I'm like, I'm not going to screw with this. I'm getting bit. It was after like an hour of nothing, and I was pulling them out of like some of the deepest, thickest crap ever, and it was like gnarly trees with branches everywhere. And I still yanked them out.
That's awesome.
So like that, it's stout enough that I could fish like that, but it's light enough that if I need to go kind of like finesse and go with like a small weightless fluke on a light gauge hook,
you can do it.
It's still spongy enough, and the line is a light enough weight that you can still sling that and get good casting distance out of it.
Yeah.
That is like my ultimate do-all combo.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's funny. When I choose a lot of these combos, like my combo that I would choose, I put that together this summer, and it's a spinning combo. It's a 7-foot medium heavy spinning rod. It's an Abu Garcia Vengeance, nothing crazy. I've got a Lew's Mach 2 on it, and I only settled on using this because I wanted to try it, but I've been trying out Reaction Tackle's No Fade Braid. Mm-hmm. And I bought a spool of 30-pound to put on there because it's super small but super strong. It gives me some options, and it floats. And I'll tie like 10-pound fluoro on for a leader, and I'll throw like 90% of the stuff that I have with me. Like I'm not going to throw the 190 Whopper Plopper on there or anything like that. Or even the Rat. It's just way too heavy for that. But I've thrown a 3/8 ounce jig on there, and I've also thrown weightless flukes. Yep. And you're right. I mean, it gives you a whole lot of versatility. I think that's really like what you're looking for in a rod, something like that. And it's funny, that rod I look at more as when I'm in the kayak, I usually like to use my heavier rods anyway, because I don't have the leverage of the bank.
Right.
and it's a 13-foot boat. It gets pulled around with ease, So I like to have a little bit more backbone there. So I'll use, I'll drop shot with that rod, and I'll also use like Ned rigs and things like that on that one. When I'm on the bank, I have a 7-foot medium that I'll use for drop shots and Ned rigs and more finesse type stuff when it comes to that. And then what I've found is, as far as, getting out there and sort of like being versatile and being able to like handle it all, like less is a whole lot more. I got some funky stuff happening with my laptop here. Hold on a second.
All right.
You're cool, but yeah, we're good. We're good. All right. I just want to make sure that this thing didn't crash on me. Nice. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. I got last couple of questions here, and but they're kind of big ones. So I need two stories. I need the moment that you're like most proud of on the water, and it could be for any reason. It could be a tournament win. It could be a PB. It could be, something crazy happened and like you were able to help out and you're like, we were there for, whatever it might have been, whatever you're most proud of on the water. And then on the other side of it, I want you to share the biggest. And I know we've all got plenty of them.
All right. Most proud moment is actually a recent one.
That's cool.
This past 2020. Last 2019, I started coaching a high school bass fishing team, Hillsborough Deering.
In New England?
Yep.
That's awesome.
And it was something like years ago, one of my friends who's a guide up north, Travis Rocket, him and his dad are bass fishing guides here in the state.
Okay.
The Northern Bass Guides, I think is what they're called. And I owe the foundation of everything I know about fishing up north to those guys. But Travis, same deal as me, right? Like grew up fishing and everything. And he went to the New Hampshire Junior Bass Masters. And one year, like after he was out of high school, he was like, hey, the Bass Masters, they go to Wentworth State Park and they clean up the whole park. And as a result, the state waives their fee to do their tournaments there. We need more boats, take these kids out. I was like, okay, you busted your ass cleaning the park. Let's go fun fishing for a few hours.
Yeah.
Can you come? I was like, yeah, sure. That was one of the most rewarding things I'd ever done because I took out two kids, 14, 15 years old, and they kind of knew what they were doing. They weren't completely beginners. And I had an idea as to what was going on for conditions. So I was like, let's try spinnerbaits over here. And it was like a insane post-spawn bite for the smallmouth. And these kids were trucking them.
That's awesome.
So ever since then, I've been like, man, I'd love to get back to be able to do that. And the opportunity came up 2019 to become a high school coach. I jumped on it. And that first year was tough, but it was good. It was rewarding. The two kids I had were seniors. And then fast forward to last year, 2020, with Corona and everything, wasn't even sure it was going to happen. Nobody knew until 2 weeks before the tournament, the state qualifying tournament. Finally, the school votes, yes, we're going to do it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I have no idea who my team is, what is going on, who's interested. Like, I don't have a final list or anything. Like, I had 4 wishy-washy kind of kids, and finally got down to 3 kids. Narrowed down to the 2. It was a senior. This girl was a senior, and then another guy that was a freshman. They were as green gets.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew next to nothing.
Gotcha.
Especially, the boy, he came trout background. He knew almost nothing about fishing in general, but, especially for bass fishing.
Yeah.
My senior, she started to learn a little bit. Like she was one of the first ones that expressed interest in the spring. So I said, okay, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen here. I know you said you're going to be able to fish a few times this year. And I threw her, I created this crazy 10-page document inside of Google Drive. Like, here are the absolute basics of what you need to know about fish care. What the hell does everything mean and all the gear that you're buying? Like, what gear do you need at minimum in the boat? All that shit. And she just drank it all up. And when she came and we started practicing, she actually was like, she was talking to me. She it was crazy how much she absorbed and just how eager she was to learn. So qualifying tournament comes, and we're up on Winnie, and I went out and pre-fished, and it was weird. The bite wasn't what it was supposed to be doing. This drought really played just a huge factor in what happened this year. So I was kind of lost. I'm like, man, I don't know what we're gonna do, but what I did it like last year. I'm like, what do you want to do? What are you more comfortable with? And they're like, shallow water, largemouth. Like, all right, fine, we're gonna try it. The first 2 hours, I knew that bite was not it. That was not going to happen. And I made the mistake last year with my team where I stuck with it longer than I should have because that's what they were comfortable and confident with. And I told myself I wasn't going to do it, and I didn't do it this year. I said, look, this is not it. I'm going to ask you to do something you're not comfortable with. We're going to go drop shot 40 feet of water for smallmouth.
There you go.
and they were fucking gung-ho about it, man. They're like, fucking, all right, let's go. What do I got to tie on?
Yeah.
And I can't do this for them. I'm not allowed to touch their gear. So I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to walk them through it and motion my hands. I'm like, this is how you tie your leader and the whole 9 yards. We pull up to our first hump, 40 feet of water. It kind of tops out 35 feet.
Yep.
And I'm showing them, I've already showed them once pre-fishing in a kettle pond, okay, this is kind of what you're looking for in a graph. But now we're deep water, they can really see it.
Yep.
And I'm showing them okay, that's a fish, and this is a fish, and this is why. And I gave them a fucking crash course in 5 to 10 minutes
That's
of
awesome.
Video game fishing deep for smallmouth.
Yep. And they probably ate it up, right?
They did, and they caught a limit in like an hour and a half.
Oh, yes.
They caught a limit. They put it in the boat. They were one fish shy of a limit. He dropped it at the boat.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh no, I don't know. It was like it's gonna be close. But talking to a few boats went by. They said they were struggling. So we go to weigh in, and they got 10th place. They got the last qualifying spot.
No way! That's huge.
Last qualifying spot, and they made it to the state championship. First time in the school's history that they made it to the state championship.
That's amazing. Like I'm amazed that a New England high school would even have a bass fishing team. I've never heard of that up in the Northeast.
It blew up in the last like 6 to 8 years, but some of these schools adopted it as far as like 12 years ago.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's so crazy too because literally yesterday I got a DM which was a little bit sketchy. He wouldn't tell me what the school was, what state they were in, anything. But I get DMs all the time, people looking. Unfortunately, they're like, copied and paste. Like they're looking for sponsors for. I'm expecting baits and things like that, and we get stuff. And usually, my response is, we're a podcast, right? Like, that's what we do. Oh, we'd love to put your logo. But this kid was slick. He goes, what was it? He's like, yeah, we're looking for sponsors for our high school bass fishing team. And then the following message was, well, they're basically looking to get this stuff in order so they can bring it to the school department to get a team together. And I'm like, well, what's the cost involved? He had no idea, nothing at all. He's like, whatever you can give us. I'm like, and I asked him, I was like, he goes, we love your products and we'd gladly put your logo on our jerseys. And I said, okay, cool. What products do you like the most from us? And he comes back and I all I could do was laugh. He goes, we bought a few of your hats. We really like them. I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm like, and I mean, we haven't ever done that yet. And primarily because, we're a New England based podcast. So if we were going to back a school, we'd like to at least have that tie of being in the Northeast, if we were able to do it. So I didn't even know that was a thing up here. I figured it was everything basically from like Virginia down. It became popular,
Yep. No,
That's crazy.
Last year was 2019 was a bit better turnout. There was 37 teams for the qualifying tournament, and this year there was only 33 teams.
Yeah.
There was a few that had to bounce last minute.
Yeah.
And then there's a few that I don't even think they could field a team this year. And there was two that had to bounce very last minute because one of the kids tested positive.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't even the kid. It was somebody else in the school, and then they shut down all sports.
Yeah.
For one of the schools specifically. I remember that. I was like, oh, that sucks. But yeah, I mean, like even last year, 2019, it would have been even more than the 37. But oh man, I'm sorry if you hear that vibrating. My heater kicked on.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
It was 37 boats, and it should have been higher, but they messed up. They accidentally scheduled the same week as the New Hampshire Bass Nation state team qualifying tournament, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And the state team qualifying tournament makes Lake Winnipesaukee off limits for the week before the tournament.
Gotcha.
So there was a bunch of guys that were fishing it that were supposed to be coaches and captains and boat captains, bring boats for these teams, and last minute they're like, dude, we can't. Yeah. They would not make an exception for them. So a bunch of schools got left high and dry at the last minute. But yeah, like, I don't know, I circle back. Like that was, dude, that's hard.
Yeah.
Asking kids to do that. Like asking anybody to do that, especially someone really green. Like I've taken some really good shallow water guys out.
Yeah.
That have asked me, hey, I want to get better at deep water. Can you please take me out and show me? And as soon as I get them out to 20 feet, we're not even halfway there yet, and they're already getting nosebleeds. Like, it's hard. Like, it was really hard for me. It took me a few years to get comfortable fishing.
Yep.
Seemingly literally nothing. The idea of structure is vastly different. You have to completely change your perspective.
Oh, 100%.
When you're doing that for smallmouth, because you go shallow water, I can see that rock, I can see that tree, I can see that grass, I can see the difference in the depth there. There's a little break right there.
Yep.
You got nothing but 2D sonar, and if you're lucky, like I am, I'm fortunate enough I have even more toys that help. Like I got my Mega 360 imaging to help even break out that picture even better. Like, oh, okay. I'm in 60 feet of water all around except for this one little pyramid in the middle. It comes up to 35 feet, and oh, look, there's a little rock pile on that one side. And, like, it seems like nothing, but my God, that is everything.
Yeah.
So, again, it's hard just to even bring an experienced angler that
Definitely.
knows their shit
Yep.
out there and to do that. And to ask two kids that know next to nothing.
Yeah.
And they were like the most upbeat, positive, like, yeah, let's do it. And we went out and
you
they
need
did
to
it.
be.
They killed it.
That's great, man. You need it. It must just be something about the youth where they're like, all right, cool, it's a challenge. Let's go ahead and do it. And I mean, like the fact where you're teaching them to tie leaders, but you can't do anything for them. Like, you want to talk about having the deck stacked against you. Like, you guys placed 10th. That's huge. You know what I mean? Oh, that's freaking unbelievable. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I haven't had much to be proud of the last few years of the way my career's gone, but like that was like the mental boost that I needed it.
Yeah, I get
like
that.
that was such a good thing.
Yeah, that's really good. So let's flip the table around and talk about the biggest fail.
No, that one's gonna be hard from a fishing perspective. I honestly can't think of any. There's been just a lot of bad days.
Oh yeah, there always will be. Yeah.
I've broke a couple of rods in my years. Just losing my temper. And I actually broke one this year, shortly after I lost my job because of COVID.
Oh, shit.
And it was just, I was just not in a good mindset anyway. And then that happened and I was super frustrated that day. And it was probably the lowest I've been in a long time because I lost my temper and I snapped my custom drop shot rod right in front of my 8-year-old son.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a
and
shitty... Oh, that sucks.
And the absolute, that's got to be the fail. The absolute biggest fail. Because the extra hard kick in the gut, it just kills me when I think about it. He looked at me and he started crying. He goes, hey, just be thankful we're out fishing and having fun, right? My fucking 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, he gave you the talk that you should have been the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah. That's the thing. It's like we're all just big kids, Yeah,
it's true. It's amazing what stress does to you. And I just lost, I'm very, very thankful and grateful for how my son is turning out to be. And for my 8-year-old to turn around and drop that little dime of perspective on me.
Definitely. That's huge. It says a lot about the kids you're raising, though. You know what I mean? That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Off the water, though, I mean, still fishing related, I've made some pretty boneheaded mistakes in the way I've treated people. Just letting my emotions get the best of me, being an absolute dick when I had no reason to, instead of just being like an adult about it and be like, you know what? I think this happened. Let's talk. And I just handled it like a complete dumbass and a jerk off.
Yep.
And that still eats away at me because I let my emotions get the best of me and, I make stupid decisions that still eat away at me. And I'm like, you know what? Nothing I can do but apologize, which I did.
That's all you can do.
Try and move on and not let it eat away at me like it still does. But.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. I mean, I'm not exactly the most even-keeled person either. I've got a quick temper. And it's like I will never forget this one day. And I think I've talked about this on the show before. I went out and, like I said, I've dabbled in tournaments a little bit. And unfortunately for me and the people around me, the tournaments that I chose to dabble in are all, though, like the competition is really light and it's mainly just like for fun. There is money on the line, but it's nothing crazy. But the people who are involved here are really good. These are monthly tournaments. And when you carry that kind of competitive pressure, like for 30 days versus you can section it out in a weekend and be like, hey, I'm going to wreck myself mentally over this one tournament and then it's done. When you're doing that for a month, it's a marathon. Shawn the fisherman says this all the time. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I go, You said more than you realize you said. It is like on your like own mental being. It is. So I'll never forget this one day. I'm out with, and this is the way it turned out, ended up like just recently being amazing. But I was out with a buddy of mine, and he's like my best friend in the world. And he, this summer, right after I got COVID, actually, no, this spring, right after I got COVID, he went to the hospital for a surgery for a gallbladder, and they found that he had pancreatic cancer. And like immediately, like actually the podcast had just started at that time, and my whole idea was, this is different. Now we're going to do national tournaments. I'm going to do fundraisers. We're going to start up a trust fund for his kids. We're going to do, we're going to make this shit happen. This all of a sudden got very, very real. Fast forward, he has since had finished chemo. His surgery is going through radiation now. For all intents and purposes right now, he has beat cancer. he's doing very, very, very well, and he's only
That's
like
awesome.
40. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he's very, very lucky. So this one day, and one of the things at that moment when we found out about this diagnosis, I was like, okay, so he's one of these guys. And Paul, I apologize if you're hearing this, but I'm spilling more than I think we ever agreed that we were going to talk about. He would, I told him, I said, look, we've been friends for 20 years, and I told him, I said, we have written off a lot of this stuff, like going to Champlain or just taking a weekend and, camping and getting out and fishing. And, we've been beating the bank our entire time that we fished together the entire time. Like, we started out in a band, we played music together and everything. And we only kind of discovered in 2012 that we're into fishing. What ended up happening was, I got my kayak. And I was kind of living this experience, going out and getting off, being off of the bank, and now kind of like having a little bit more of an adventure with all this. And I've been telling him, I'm like, man, we got to get you out on the kayak. Next time we get together, I'll take it with me. We'll just send you off. You can give it a go. And he's like, all right, cool, let's do it. So this one day, we go to this one spot. We call it Devil's Swamp. And it is the grossest, nastiest swamp you've ever seen. It just has a smell. And we went there specifically because the chain pickerel are big and they are hungry. And this is a multi-species tournament that I do. It's the Chronic Trips one. You might have heard some of the stuff get mentioned.
Yeah.
So we're in this, and I'm like, I could use some points on the pickerel board. Like, this would be really great. So I get all my gear together, and we're fishing, and I think we caught a couple of small ones, but we can see a bunch of fish busting way further out than we can cast from where we are. We only have access on this one bank. So I had never launched my kayak without an actual ramp or more of a sandy flat or something, a little bit easier right off there. So I tell him, he goes, why don't we grab the boat? We'll send you out there. If it's good, then come on back afterwards, and we'll get you on the board with what you need. Come back, and then I'll give it a go. I'll try it out. I was like, sounds great, perfect. So I'm getting ready, and I'm like, my mind is racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm trying to get things together, and I go to get into the kayak, and right at the bank, I go to launch, and I tip the kayak over and I go right under the water.
Oh, no.
And my phone, I had a Shimano Corrado that I had probably bought like 3 weeks prior that had gone underwater. Like, I thought I ruined a bunch of gear. I lost so much stuff. I was like, because it was all in all this muck. I come up out of the water. I was so pissed off. And it was like, that was one of the things where I was just like, I got to stop. And I made the conscious decision that when he and I would fish, I'd leave my measuring board at home. So I couldn't be in tournament mode. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, because that moment was more important to me to just have time fishing with my buddy than it was anything else. But it was one of these things. I remember I got up out of the water. I was like, it just would have sounded the amount of expletives coming out of my mouth, and I'm like throwing shit around and everything. And I'm like, I almost just left, like I was done. But I'm like, I'm soaking wet. I'm going to get in the car and everything's going to be soaked. So I might as well fish until I'm done drying off. And we ended up salvaging the day. You know what I mean? It ended up working out. It was all right. But this poor guy, I was like, he's never going to get in a kayak now after seeing this, That's what I was afraid of. Fast forward to last week or the week before. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, he just bought his own kayak. He's ready to go. Yeah, so we're getting out and doing this year. That's 2021 is going to be his year. We're going to give him a good time. But yeah, it's like, you kind of just get so wrapped into whatever you're doing, and you react how you react. It is what it is,
Yep. we try and do better, but we're not perfect.
No, exactly. Awesome, Shawn. Well, hey, this is your opportunity, man. Go ahead, tell people where they can find out more about you, where they can find you on any social media. This is your moment to promote yourself. Go for it.
Cool, thanks, man. I'm on pretty much everything. You can find me on Facebook, 603 Bass. I'm on Twitter, though nobody really cares about that anymore, 603 Bass. Very active on Instagram, again, 603 Bass. I say 603, it's 603. What else am I on? Fishbrain, 603 Bass _fishing, because some kids stole my username on there and won't respond to my messages to give it back. And then, I probably already said it again, but YouTube, 603 Bass. On YouTube, I try to upload once a week, and right now we've got the weekly live streams we're going to be doing every Thursday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We got a new series I'm working on, Bass Fishing Quick Tips. It's kind of an idea I've been kicking around down the road since July 2018 that I finally enacted on. But yeah, man, like I'm most active on Instagram. I post stories there when we're out there on Sundays.
Yep.
Obviously the YouTube channel, and then yeah, hopefully you guys are willing to check out the channel. I'd appreciate it.
No, it's great video content. I can attest by it. His Instagram is unbelievable. Go give him a follow. Shawn, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was a whole lot of fun. I think this was a long time coming because, you know, I try to get on as many New England fishermen as I can for this show. We're a New England-based show, but, you know, we reach all over the place. So, you know, I knew that this was just a matter of time before it was going to happen, man. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story with us, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, hey, do me a favor. If you have a picture that you want me to use for the cover art for the episode, send that to me. Just DM it through Instagram, and I'll use that with our logo and stuff on it for when people actually download it, they'll see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Great, man. Well, you have a good one, all right? Have yourself a good night, and, take care.
Thanks, man. You too, and good luck with the continued success of the podcast.
Yeah, we're blessed. Over here, we're very, very blessed. So
you're good at it.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. I really do. Have yourself a good night, dude.
Thanks, you too, buddy.
See ya. Bye-bye. Alrighty, guys, that does this week's episode for Jigs and Bigs. Big shout out and thank you to Shawn for being our guest today. Follow him, 603 Bass, over on Instagram. And he's got a brand new weekly live stream that is really great stuff. Like, they get into it. They talk a lot about, baits and different presentations. And, I mean, they really, really get into it over there. Go and check out the live stream. It's every Thursday night, and that video stays up. So if you can't catch it while it's live, watch it afterwards. You'll definitely enjoy it. Lots of great stuff coming up, guys, for Jigs and Bigs. We mentioned our tournament earlier in the episode. We had a great conversation about private property, fishing, dealing with property owners, Karen culture, and also marinas. I would love it if you guys would reach out with your information, your stories about dealing with property owners. If you are a property owner, how does it work in your area? What have you found as ways to work around? A good resource to find out information about property owners, rights versus fishermen's rights and things like that. A lot of people get really fired up about this stuff, understandably so. But if everybody takes a deep breath, I think we can figure it all out and make things kind of work for everybody. Really, I genuinely believe that. But definitely get in touch with us. Let us know your situation. You can DM us on Instagram, Jigs and Bigs, or you can go over to jigsandbigs.com and the contact us page. You can just send us a message right over there. You can just send an email to jigsandbigs413@gmail.com. Guys, that's going to conclude this week's show. It's been a really good one. Our giveaway is in 2 weeks. Actually, it starts in a week. Our February giveaway will start in a week. We got great stuff from Three Bells Outfitters. We've got great stuff from Stretching Lines. We've got great stuff from from Jigmasters, courtesy of Dark Horse Tackle. There's great stuff right here for you guys. So that giveaway is going to be happening as always. Thank you guys so much. We have the best listeners, the best jig heads, the best supporters. We really appreciate you. If you want to become a jig head and get into this live recording that we've been doing for the intros and outro, be able to engage a little bit with us as we do this, it's easy to do. Jigsandbigs.com. You can become a patron right there. Click the button by the logo. It'll bring you over to our Patreon. You can lock it in for $5 a month. You get all of this stuff. Plus, we've got a couple of extra benefits in there. We've got a really funny React video that's posted in there. We also have a special promo code for Hooks at Hoodlums for the Patreon members. If you guys want to get a nice little discount on Hooks at Hoodlums gear, go ahead and check it out. Hooks at Hoodlums. Look at that. All right, guys. On behalf of Shawn the Fisherman, all of our good friends, all of our jig heads, I'm Bobby Roastbeef. Have yourself a great week, guys. Spring is only a handful of weeks away. It's coming. Tight lines, everybody. Have yourself a good one. Bye-bye.